organizing a public presentation of the needs assessment of political parties in Nigeria. This assessment is part of a project here at the center called Support to Political Parties. And the project itself is one of 6 components in the European Union Support to Democratic Governance in Nigeria. The importance of this assessment highlights the role of political parties in developing a democratic culture in Nigeria, and it has been important to engage with these political parties to identify the current strengths that they exhibit, as well as some of the weaknesses and challenges they face. As part of the public presentation, there will be a panel discussion that explores the topic developing and sustaining a political culture of integrity and accountability. This highlights the importance for us to have political parties that are accountable both to the members of those parties, but can also translate that accountability and integrity to public life when they eventually get into government. One of the key lessons learned for me during the course of the needs assessment engaging with political parties has been to see a human resource in the quality of persons that are involved within our political parties and the ideas they have for the country. But I look forward to working with political parties as we engage one another to see how we can overcome these challenges with the opportunities we've seen in their capacities and their ideas. The Kukah Centre is organizing a public presentation of the needs assessment of political parties in Nigeria. This assessment is part of a project here at the center called Support to Political Parties. And the project itself is one of 6 components in the European Union Support to Democratic Governance in Nigeria. The importance of this assessment highlights the role of political parties in developing a democratic culture in Nigeria, and it has been important to engage with these political parties to identify the current strengths that they exhibit, as well as some of the weaknesses and challenges they face. As part of the public presentation, there will be a panel discussion that explores the topic developing and sustaining a political culture of integrity and accountability. This highlights the importance for us to have political parties that are accountable both to the members of those parties, but can also translate that accountability and integrity to public life when they eventually get into government. One of the key lessons learned for me
shall never be in vain, to serve with heart and mind, one nation bound in freedom, peace and unity. Thank you very much. You may be seated. Once again, to welcome us all to this public presentation of the needs assessment of political parties in Nigeria. Indeed, we ask ourselves today, are political parties living optimally and up to expectation? What are the things to consider to make them better than they presently are? And with these, we have quite a lot of things to focus on today. The objective of this event include publicly presenting the findings from the needs assessment and also highlighting the key challenges as well as solutions to improving intra- and inter-party culture of political parties. We'll also highlight the gaps in the administration and management of Nigeria's political parties and further explore the role of political actors in addressing these concerns. And at the end of it all, we look forward to obtaining the commitment of political actors, parties, and institutions on advancing the democratic process in Nigeria. Seated in the room are eminent men and women, distinguished in different ways where they have found themselves. And we'll just like to take some time to recognize all those who are here with us today, who are here to ensure that indeed this event goes the way it should. We're so honored and glad to have with us our convener and the one who has gathered us here today, the founder of the Kukah Centre, and he is the convener of the National Peace Committee, Bishop Matthew Hassan Kukah. You're welcome, my Lord. Great to have you here. Thank you so much. We're also very honored to have with us the special representative of the Secretary General and head of the United Nations Office for West Africa and the Sahel, you know us, His Excellency Leonardo Santos Simao. Thank you so much for being here. We're also honored to have with us in the room the people who have brought us together for this needs assessment. And we have various members, chairmen, secretaries, women leaders, other members of political parties here present. We would like to honor and welcome all those who have joined us from across the country. Would like to first welcome the chairman of the All Progressives Congress, Alhaji Abdullahi Umar Ganduje, who is here with us. You're welcome, sir. Thank you so much for being here. We're also honored to have with us the acting National Secretary, that is, of the People's Democratic Party, Honorable Setonji Koshoedo. He is here with us. You're welcome, sir. Also from the PDP, we have Otumba Shegun Showumi. Thank you so much, sir, for being here. And we also have with us from other parties here present, from the NRM, Ambassador Felix Johnson Osakwe is here. You're welcome, sir. Thank you for being here. And from the APM, we have two representatives with us, Oyadei Ayodele Adebayo and Aisha Abubakar. You are welcome. Honorable Mohammed Lawal Nalado, who is the chairman of A Party, is here with us. Thank you so much, sir, for being here. If you could just rise. Okay, I know he's around somewhere. Thank you so much. We also have with us from AA, Honorable Adekunle Rufai, who is the national chairman of the party. You are welcome, sir. And with him as well is Alhaji Ibrahim Isa. You are all welcome. Thank you for being here. And from the ADC, we have Chief Ralph Oke Nwosu, the national chairman of ADC, alongside his national secretary, Alhaji Saeed Baba Abdullahi. You are welcome, sir. And from other parties, we have from the SDP, Hajia Saadatu Abdullahi, the national women leader of SDP. You're welcome, ma'am. Mrs. Judith Shaibu, National Organizing Secretary of the SDP, is also here. You are welcome. Thank you for being here. Would also like to recognize Prince Nweze Onu of the NNPP, who is here with us. You're welcome, sir. Alongside Honorable Ofokansi Henry, who is also of the NNPP. You are welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And from the YPP, we have Honorable Barrister Vidieno Bamayi, the National Secretary of the YPP, alongside the South-South Zonal Chairman, Professor Tosan Blessing Harriman. You are welcome. Thank you for honoring us today. As we get more of the political parties, please, if I have missed you, kindly forgive me, but we will definitely get the names and, of course, have you all recognized as the case may be. We're also very, very honored to have with us today, representing the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, the National Commissioner for Party Monitoring and Voter Education and Publicity, Mr. Sam Olumekun. You're welcome, sir. So great to have you with us today. And of course, our presenter of this needs assessment who is going to be presenting the findings from this assessment, Professor Jake D. Dang Azumi. You are welcome, sir. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you. Also recognizing the Executive Director of the Kukah Centre, Father Atta Barkindo. Thank you, Father, for being here. We welcome you. And of course, quite a number of other guests will definitely join us as the day goes by. And of course, they will be recognized. We're expecting Engineer Sani Yusuf Yabagi, the National Chairman of the Interparty Advisory Council. I'm sure he will join us very, very shortly. But we're also honored to have a distinguished guest in our midst who has been chairman of a political party, the former chairman of the People's Democratic Party, and the former executive governor of Kaduna State, His Excellency Ahmed Makarfi. He is here in our midst. You're welcome, sir. Thank you so much for being here today. And of course, we have the president of the Nigeria Bar Association, Mr. Yakubu Chonoko Maikyo, OON, who is joining us as well. Some of our other panelists are here. Would like to recognize Ms. Ene Obi, former convener, Civil Society Situation Room, and of course, Country Director, Action Aid. You're welcome, ma'am. Thank you so much for being here. As the names get to me, definitely we will recognize and introduce everyone. But as I said earlier, we're here to hear what is going on in our political parties, what indeed will make them better than they are, and indeed the expectations from Nigerians of political parties are very, very high. We look forward to a great conversation today, and of course obtaining that commitment at the end of it of political actors, of political parties and institutions on advancing the democratic process in Nigeria. My name is Inya Ode, and I'll be taking you through the events for today. Alongside Josiah, who is right beside me, the Kukah Centre has shown great strides in being inclusive. Josiah will be working with Yemisi to ensure that our audience who are hearing impaired are not left behind in this conversation. Please, let's give it up for the Kukah Centre in this manner. Thank you so much. Without further ado, may I respectfully invite for his welcome remarks the founder of the Kukah Centre and the convener of the National Peace Committee, Bishop Matthew Hassan Kukah, Catholic Bishop of Sokoto Diocese. I think the applause can be warmer than that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I've always had problems with applause that is manufactured. And I remember, I think I've said it before, meeting President Jimmy Carter. And one of the things I remember about him was him telling a story about father. He went to deliver a lecture in Japan at the end of his tenure as the President of the United States of America. And the people didn't, the students didn't speak English, not many of them. So he decided he would start by telling them a joke. And he agreed with the Vice Chancellor that he would tell the joke, and then after that, the Vice Chancellor would translate the joke into Japanese. And he told the joke, and then afterwards he asked the Vice Chancellor to translate the joke. And the Vice Chancellor translated the joke, but in less than 3 sentences. And to his greatest shock, the whole hall burst into applause. And he couldn't understand because he said he had been telling this joke many times, but nowhere has he received this kind of applause. So at the end of the lecture, as he was serving coffee with the Vice Chancellor, he said, look, I told this joke for about 3 minutes, and you only use about 2 or 3 sentences. So what is it that made this so spectacular? And he said, well, when I took the microphone, I just told them that the former president of the United States of America has told us a joke. Please start clapping. So, Enya, thank you for that first applause. In the absence of a coherent narration of history, I am reading what I have written. Nigeria and Nigerians have often tried to find a series of alibis to plaster over the visible cracks of the walls of our collective memory. The result is that there is a dissonance in our definition and expression of ourselves, who we are as Nigerians, our histories, and our cultures. Where did history fall off the cracks in academia? Why did history lose its allure and attraction to students and even to teachers? What are the implications and consequences of a young generation of Nigerians today who are more or less ignorant of their history? In the absence of clear answers, Nigerians have often provided their own answers based on fables and contrived myths. As a result, you often hear Nigerians say that it is the federal government that decided to ban history from the syllabi of the universities because successive governments had performed so badly that they didn't want young Nigerians to know about their past. And as you know, there is a saying that if you want to hide an idea from a black man, the best thing to do is to put it in a book. Now, some have argued that in reality, history ceased to exist, or that history ceased to have a market value. And as such, it fell victim to the laws of supply and demand. Either way, we know that today there isn't much pride in history, and my argument is that the disruptive conversation among us as Nigerians and its lack of coherence is evidence of the price we are paying for a generation of Nigerians growing without history. The appetite to study history ended when it seemed clear that if you studied history, you would end up teaching in a secondary school and not in a bank or the NNPC. Unless, of course, you had somebody who knew somebody somewhere. At a time when banks became the path to the great rush, young women in skimpy skirts and young men in bow ties stepped and kept pounding the streets in search of what the banks called deposits. This was our culture in the late 80s and the 90s. And if you were a graduate, all that young graduates wanted to do was to work in a bank. And while the banks made their money, young women would sooner than later begin to realize and to feel the pressure of being bankers and the cost of all of this on their moral integrity. Ironically, in the 80s and the 90s, the universities of Ahmadu Bello, universities of Calabar, Jos, Ife, Port Harcourt, among many others, were centers of academic excitement and excellence, as a generation of scholars turned history into one of the most exciting subjects in the social science faculties. I'm happy that my friend, Bianu, is here because they were some of the leading Marxists of the time. And we all have memories of the robust ideological engagement between state and citizens, fired and guided by reputable professors and student union underlings. Professors and students filled the air with the robust analysis of what was famously referred to as the contradictions of society, class, This has consequences for our society.
The Kukah Centre is organizing a public presentation of the needs assessment of political parties in Nigeria. This assessment is part of a project here at the center called Support to Political Parties. And the project itself is one of 6 components in the European Union Support to Democratic Governance in Nigeria. The importance of this assessment highlights the role of political parties in developing a democratic culture in Nigeria, and it has been important to engage with these political parties to identify the current strengths that they exhibit, as well as some of the weaknesses and challenges they face. As part of the public presentation, there will be a panel discussion that explores the topic developing and sustaining a political culture of integrity and accountability. This highlights the importance for us to have political parties that are accountable both to the members of those parties, but can also translate that accountability and integrity to public life when they eventually get into government. One of the key lessons learned for me during the course of the needs assessment engaging with political parties has been to see a human resource in the quality of persons that are involved within our political parties and the ideas they have for the country. But I look forward to working with political parties as we engage one another to see how we can overcome these challenges.
can be undertaken. Because the people who draw the rules guiding football are not necessarily footballers themselves, but there needs to be rules. So my hope is that this is the beginning of a pretty long journey of collaboration and cooperation for the greatness of our country. The report has drawn not just from academic analysis, but it has a range of reviews, as you will see when you read it in summary form, of interviews with ordinary people on the streets about what they think of politics and political parties. The report has recommended the constant review of the Electoral Act, because this must be a work in progress. I just detour. Last week, my nephew was traveling from Sokoto, and he got into a taxi. And then he said, they got to a point, and the taxi driver said, he's hearing a sound from the engine, and he needs to stop and check. And he stopped. And exactly where he stopped, about 4 or 5 men came out. They had an arrangement, and they just took all of them into the bush. Luckily for him, he had his phone with him. They said they wanted a minimum of 500,000 naira, and well, they looked at his phone, looked at his account, and found he had over 500,000 naira. They took everything from his account and handed his phone back to him. I said, what about your colleague? He said they didn't have up to 500, so they are still being held. But then I asked him, I said, I thought, okay, very good. Where did you enter the taxi? He told me. But then I now say, well, maybe looking back, the lesson you learn now is next time you are entering a taxi, maybe take the picture of the plate number and send it to somebody related to you. So if anything happens, you can at least begin to trace something. The point I'm making is that we will never see the end of what free, fair, and credible elections are, because every initiative is a work in progress. We use yesterday's mistakes to correct today. And therefore, we must develop the confidence in the political process, in spite of the actors, that when we make corrections today, tomorrow other problems are going to emerge. So I want to thank all those who worked on this report. In particular, I want to thank Father Barkindo, who is the leader of the team at the center. And with him, the center, of course, and his vision is in safe hands. And to all of you on this occasion, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, I think, is ably represented, the INEC chairman, Engineer Yusuf Yabagi, the IPAC chairman, and other distinguished members of civil society. Ambassador Leonardo Simao, we want to thank you very much. You were here before most of us. And to, once again, the chairman of the APC and the former chairman of PDP and other chairmen of parties, we're very deeply appreciative. To all who worked on this project, staff, consultants, we are grateful. It is our hope that this briefing will serve only as a mere paragraph in a volume of work on political parties, because the challenges are ahead of us. Once again, thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, Your Lordship. We appreciate you, Most Reverend Matthew Hassan Kukah, the Catholic Bishop of Sokoto Diocese, and the founder of the Kukah Centre and convener of the National Peace Committee. Indeed, every enterprise, everything that we lay our hands to do is a work in progress. Every initiative is a work in progress, and we need to keep working at it to ensure that we see perfection at the end of the day. Thank you once again. Please, another round of applause for Bishop Matthew Hassan Kukah. Matthew Hassan Kukah. And while he was speaking, we had some of our guests who joined us. Would like to welcome and recognize the representative of the European Union, who is representing the ambassador of the European Union to Nigeria and the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, Her Excellency Samuela Isopi, ably represented by Laolu Oluwumi. You're welcome. Thank you. Ably represented by Laolu Oluwumi. You're welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Please, a round of applause for her. We also have a representative of the Swiss ambassador. That's Mr. Luca Urech. You're welcome, Luca. Thank you so much for being here. We're also honored to welcome Luca. Thank you so much for being here. We're also honored to have with us the convener of the Situation Room, Dr. YZ Yao, is here. Thank you so much, sir, for being here. Also recognizing from the APP, Mr. Charles Nadi. You're welcome, sir. Thank you for being here. And would also like to recognize the representative of the Senate President. And we're talking about the chairman of the Senate Committee on Diaspora and NGOs, who's representing the good people of Anambra Central Senatorial District. That's talking about Senator Dr. Victor C. Ume, OFR. You're welcome, sir. Thank you so much for being here. And of course, I would like to welcome someone very specially. I believe we have mentioned his name. His Lordship had mentioned him. But before I go into that, I would like to welcome one of our panel discussants, Professor Okechukwu Ibanu, the Professor of Political Science, University of Nigeria, Nsukka. You're welcome. Thank you so much for being here, sir. And would like to also recognize and welcome Engineer Sani Yusuf Yabagi, who's the National Chairman of the Inter-Party Advisory Council, IPAC. He joined us at some point and would respectfully invite you, sir, to please give your goodwill message right now. Please, your goodwill message, sir. Oh, yes. Please, let's give him a warm applause as he makes his way here for his goodwill message.
Let me begin by congratulating Your Lordship, Martin Kukah, the Archbishop of Sokoto Diocese. Let me also recognize the presence of distinguished party leaders present here. We have the national chairman of almost all the political parties here present or represented. We have the national chairman of APC in the person of His Excellency Alhaji Omar Ganduje. We also have the representative of the PDP, ABGA, NRM, PRP. Almost all the parties are here. Because of the time, let me say that I welcome my distinguished party leaders who are here, and also the European Union, who have been very, very active in supporting entrenchment of democracy in the most populous country on the continent of Africa, Nigeria, and other distinguished ladies and gentlemen who are here. The subject matter of discussion today is a very, very important one because it's dear to all political parties. I must also recognize the presence of the representative of the Senate President, who is here, because his presence here is very, very important, because there's nothing we can do when you talk about constitutional democracy without reference to the National Assembly. And you'll observe that of all institutions created by the National Assembly, perhaps it's only political parties that was created by the National Assembly without doing what Kukah Centre is trying to do today, that is the needs assessment of political parties, to the extent that even the funding of political parties is no longer obtainable anymore. And I cannot think of any other assistance that parties get from the government. And if you weigh that against the background of our situation, country that is described as a developing country, although we shouldn't be, because we have everything that it takes for us to become a developed country, but this is where we are today. So, and if you also look at the level of poverty and ignorance that we have in this clime, that is Nigeria, you will agree with me that to a very large extent, there should be some kind of assistance given to political parties, emerging political parties, so that the issue of multi-party system will be given its true effect, meaning that all parties can compete effectively or even reasonably. But the situation where smaller parties or growing parties are not funded because other parties have access to government resources by virtue of the fact that they have governments, in their parties, and the intention of democracy is that you are given a level playing field, and in Nigeria, level playing field cannot be unless you have the resources, because by nature of democracy itself or politics, you have to have resources to be able to prosecute things like campaigns, logistics, and things like that. So needs assessment, I believe, in addition to ensuring that political parties are all-inclusive, political parties give attention to issue of voter awareness, campaigns, ensuring that youth, women, people with disabilities are brought into the equation. I think there's need for us to interrogate, seriously the issue of funding. If we do not want a situation where the so-called money bags would dictate the tone, because that's what we find in Nigeria. And we need to change that, we need to change that, and the only way we can change that is to take deliberate steps, especially by the National Assembly, to ensure that political parties, through one means or the other, are given that enabling environment for them to compete effectively. You will also agree with me that Nigeria is a leader, especially when it comes to issue of democracy. If democracy is about the people, we are the most populous country on the continent of Africa. We play big in all other aspects of other sphere of life. Economically, politically, socially, Nigeria plays very big. Therefore, democracy must survive in this country. And for it to survive, all actors must be given that enabling environment. And if you look at the nexus, very strong nexus between democracy and economy, then you will agree with me that just like government takes it upon itself to support economic growth by identifying small-scale industries and other players, by giving them some palliatives or things like that, or some intervention funds, I think it will not be out of place if democracy and political parties are also treated in that way too. So I wouldn't like to take too much of your time, but is to congratulate and thank Matthew Kukah for the effort he has been doing, for the tireless job he has been doing in ensuring that this country takes its rightful place in the Committee of Nations. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you so much to the IPAC chairman. We appreciate you, sir, and appreciate all that you do. Indeed, one of the points definitely that will be raised today would be funding, and we look forward to that when the presentation of the findings is done. May we respectfully recognize Dr. Abdullahi Yunus Abayao, National Treasurer of PRP, who's representing the National Chairman of the party, Dr. Alhaji Fadilu Bello. You're welcome, sir. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Abdullahi Yunus Abayao. Also to recognize Ambassador Yaya Kiabo Fage, Vice Presidential Candidate for NRM. You're welcome, sir. Thank you so much for being here. We'd also like to recognize Professor Hassan Saliu, the President of the Nigerian Political Science Association, NIPSA, and Dr. Rauf Adebola Bakari, Secretary General of NIPSA. You're welcome. Please, a round of applause for all our guests. Thank you so much for being here. Moving on still with our goodwill messages, would like to invite the representative of the European Union to share a few words in a goodwill message. Please join me as we welcome Laolu Oluwumi, representing the European Union's head. Please, a round of applause for her here.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm at a slight disadvantage. I have a bit of a cold, but I'll just start by echoing what the Bishop said earlier about how we have almost all the political parties represented in the room. It's not often that this happens, and it's really refreshing to see that the leadership of all of the political parties have made it a point to be with us this morning. It is my pleasure to attend this public presentation of needs assessment of political parties in Nigeria. This particular presentation and the process has taken several months to finalize, and I'm grateful to the lead researcher and all the members of the Kukah Centre team, and of course, the political parties that have taken the time to contribute to this very, very important process. And of course, ordinary Nigerians that have also made the time to contribute to this body of work. Ladies and gentlemen, modern democracy cannot work without political parties. It is a fact. Strong, stable, and would I also say democratic political parties are critical pillars of democracy when they function well. Political parties are the primary stakeholders in Nigeria's elections and Nigeria's political process. They have a critical role to play in ensuring a peaceful, credible, transparent electoral process. Political parties also serve as platforms for credible citizenship representation and provide policy choices for the people in line with their manifestos. They are a critical mass for mobilization of the people and for an all-inclusive process of democratic governance. Parties function as democracy's transmission belt, connecting the voters and their governments. They constitute a tool voters have to hold policymakers and politicians accountable, again, if they function well. Party leaderships have a democratic responsibility to play fair and be inclusive. Improved and inclusive elections with better turnout and wide participation, including of women, youth, persons with disability, and disadvantaged groups, are important for the credibility of those that are elected to serve the citizens. Political parties have an instrumental role in making this happen. Weak internal processes, poor representation, disregard of procedures, rules and laws, and other issues that have been observed over the years in Nigeria constitute challenges for a credible political process. Democracy works well when political parties are internally representative and inclusive of women, inclusive of young people, and inclusive of the most vulnerable in our society. Although most political parties have specific provisions to ensure inclusion of these groups, in practice, these provisions are not complied with. On political representation of women, that's the constituency that concerns me. So, on political representation of women who make over 50% of the population, the figures speak for themselves. Only 3 representing 2.8% of the total 109 membership of the Nigerian Senate, were elected in the 2023 elections. For the House of Representatives, we have 16, representing 4.4% of the total 360 members. We can do better. It is important for political parties to strengthen their internal democracy, to improve intra- and inter-party dialogue, and promote wide participation and inclusiveness in the political process. The EU is pleased to work with political parties and support this process through our flagship democracy support program, the EU-SDGN. The EU supports democratic governance worldwide, not only because it is consistent with our fundamental values, but also because we are convinced that democracy and good governance are the best way to achieve enduring peace, stability, sustainable socio-economic development. And that is why support to democratic governance is a crucial element of the EU engagement and cooperation with all of our partners, including Nigeria. The European Union will continue to provide targeted support by building on the successes of the past electoral cycles and taking forward the lessons learned. As the largest democracy in Africa, elections and governance in Nigeria matters. Nigeria's progress determines the future of democracy in West Africa and indeed on the continent. Nigeria has an opportunity to lead, and through its leadership, reverse the trend of democratic backsliding in the region. We, in the European Union, strongly count on Nigeria and non-Nigerian political parties to lead by example. I am very hopeful that today's proceedings will provide a platform to build consensus around the most critical issues affecting Nigeria's political culture and our democratic journey, and that we can agree on critical next steps that can be owned, driven, and led by political parties. Let me conclude by thanking the Kukah Centre for the kind invitation to attend this event and for your strong partnership with the European Union. We will continue to work together hand in hand with all Nigerian stakeholders to ensure that Nigeria's political process are peaceful, transparent, and inclusive for the benefit of Nigeria and its people. I wish you all successful deliberations. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Laolu Olawumi of the EU. We appreciate you and appreciate the kind words you have shared. Indeed, Nigeria's progress matters, and as leaders in this right, we should stand as leaders in Africa in all aspects, of course, in politics as well. And the conduct of our political parties does matter so much. Thank you once again for the words you have shared. Would like to respectfully welcome someone who joined in while Laolu was speaking. He's representing the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas, PhD. He is Right Honorable Zachariah Dauda Nyampa. Please let's give him a round of applause. You're welcome, sir. Thank you so much for being here with us this morning, or this afternoon. Moving on to the next goodwill message, may I respectfully invite the representative of the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, Mr. Sam Olumekun, who is the National Commissioner for Party Monitoring and Voter Education and Publicity. Please let's give him a warm applause as he comes up for his goodwill message.
Your Excellencies, my Lord Bishop Matthew Hassan Kukah, leaders of political parties here present, members of the diplomatic corps, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I express the regrets of the chairman of INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, that he could not be here personally because of certain pressing issues he has to attend to in the office. And so he has delegated me to deliver this goodwill message from INEC on his behalf. And these are his words. I am delighted to be invited to this timely and all-important gathering, the public presentation of needs assessments of political parties in Nigeria, organized by the Kukah Foundation. Political parties are the main gatekeepers for candidates to participate in elections. Therefore, political parties have great influence over political participation at all levels. As we navigate the intricate landscape of our nation's political arena, it is crucial to reflect on the pivotal role that political parties play in shaping the destiny of Nigeria. In the spirit of fostering a robust and dynamic democratic system, I wish to commend the Kukah Centre for its commitment to the needs assessment of political parties and resolve towards developing and sustaining a political culture of integrity and accountability in Nigeria. Your dedication to understanding and addressing the challenges faced by our political entities is commendable and speaks volumes about your vision for a stronger, more inclusive democracy. Political parties serve as the bedrock of our democratic framework, and the comprehensive needs assessment is an indispensable tool in ensuring their efficacy and responsiveness to the ever-evolving needs of the Nigerian people. By undertaking this initiative, you are contributing significantly to the enhancement of transparency, accountability, and overall governance in our beloved nation. As we delve into the intricacies of this assessment, may we keep in mind the overarching goal of fostering an environment where political parties can truly represent the aspirations of the diverse Nigerian populace. By identifying areas for improvement and implementing strategic reforms, we can collectively pave the way for a more vibrant political landscape. I believe that your efforts will not only shed light on the challenges faced by political parties, but will also serve as a catalyst for positive change. Let us remain steadfast in our commitment to building a Nigeria where the political process is characterized by integrity, fairness, and a genuine commitment to the welfare of our citizens. Thank you for your tireless dedication to this crucial undertaking. Your work is instrumental in shaping the future of our democracy, and I'm confident that the insights gained from this needs assessment will propel us towards a more prosperous and harmonious Nigeria. Wishing you success in your endeavors and looking forward to witnessing the positive impact of your invaluable contributions. Thank you, and God bless all of us.
Thank you so much for sharing the words of the chairman. We appreciate you, Mr. Sam Olumeku, for the kind words. And indeed, I'm sure the chairman of INEC will get the gist that you represented him very, very well. Thank you once again, sir. May we specially invite for the next goodwill message, the special representative of the Secretary General and head of the United Nations Office for West Africa and the Sahel, UNOWAS, His Excellency Leonardo Santos Simao. Please let's give him a warm applause as he makes his way here to deliver his goodwill message.
Thank you very much, Madam. Most Reverend Matthew Asan Kukah, Bishop of the Catholic Diocese of Sokoto, Chairman of the Kukah Centre and Convener of the National Peace Committee, Honorable Yusuf Yabagi, Chairman of the Inter-Party Advisory Committee, Honorable Members of the National Assembly, Honorable Mahmoud Yakubu, Chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, leaders of political parties, excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. On behalf of the United Nations, I'm delighted and thankful to personally attend this important event on the public presentation of the needs assessment of Nigeria. The presence of so many eminent guests and dignitaries testifies to the invaluable contribution of the Kukah Centre under the leadership of its founder and convener of National Peace Committee, Most Reverend Matthew Asan Kukah, to peace and security in Nigeria and also in West Africa. The United Nations Office for West Africa and the Sahel, UNOWAS, which I'm privileged to lead, has developed over time close working relationship with the Kukah Centre that also serves as secretariat to the National Peace Committee. The Centre has been instrumental to NPC UNOWA's joint engagements in Nigeria to help avert elections-related violence since 2015. The United Nations values and is committed to maintain this cooperation. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, political parties are key players in our young democracies. At the same time, they experience multiple challenges and attract a lot of criticism. The need to lend them adequate support cannot be overstated. In this regard, we welcome today's meeting, which is timely and crucial as it provides the opportunities to, 1, discuss the findings of the assessment exercise and clearly defined areas of possible collaboration in terms of strengthening political parties, and 2, renew our collective engagement towards the consolidation of democracy in Nigeria. I would like to assure our host, the Most Reverend Matthew Asan Kukah, of the United Nations' continued support to the Kukah Centre and commitment to bolster our cooperation. I look forward to a fruitful conversation, and thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. We appreciate you, sir. And of course, indeed, all look forward to the deliberations here today. May I respectfully recognize the National Chairman of Youth Party, who is here, Dr. Umar Mohammed. You're welcome, sir. Thank you so much for being here. And also to recognize the representative of the National Chairman of Boot Party, Sunday Adenuga. He's represented by Mohammed Kabir Umar. You are welcome. Thank you for being here. We also have the ADP Vice Presidential candidate here with us, Dr. Oke Udo. You are welcome, sir. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's indeed a full house with all parties represented, and indeed that's the point of this conversation, having all the parties here. For the final goodwill message, may I respectfully invite the representative of the Senate President to share a few words with us this afternoon, and that's in the person of Senator Dr. Victor C. Ume. Oh, all right. Music break, please. Okay, so in order of protocol, may I invite the representative of the Speaker of the House to please share a few words with us of goodwill, and that's talking about Right Honorable Nyapa. Please, let's give him a round of applause as he makes his way here.
Okay. Thank you. Your Excellencies, our Bishop, the convener of this program, leaders of the political parties present, good afternoon. I am Honorable Doda Zakaria Nyampa, member representing the people of Madagali Michika Federal Constituency, the chairman of political parties matters in the National Assembly. I stand here to represent His Excellency Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas, our leader, the Speaker of the 10th Assembly. First and foremost, I bring greetings from Mr. Speaker and his apology. You know, this very period has been so tight with some arrangements regarding the budget. So he pleads that you accept his apology. I hope the House will accept his apology in good faith. Our leader, the Bishop. So, Mr. Tajuddin Abbas, as you know, our leader, his message for this very important program organized is that in the National Assembly, we have the political party matters, whose I'm the chairman. Thus, he is doing to strengthening inter-party relation, to build our democracy, to strengthen our democracy. These are things that he feels he should have been here also to partake. So these are very commendable. And as we are aware, in the National Assembly, this is the first time we have representatives from all the parties. Notwithstanding, he gave equal opportunity and right to all the political parties in appointment of committee members, chairmanship and leadership of committee, because he believed in the rule of law and democracy. Not to say much, these are key things that he believed with such organization to strengthen democracy in this country. He will give all maximum support and ensure that our democracy develops from where it is now to where we are expecting to be very excellent and perfect. Thank you for the opportunity, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Right Honorable Zakaria Dauda Nyampa, who's representing the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Now to hear from the other side of the National Assembly, from the Senate President, Distinguished Senator Godswill Obot Akpabio, CON, ably represented by the Chairman Senate Committee on Diaspora and NGOs, and representing the people of Anambra Central Senatorial District, Senator Dr. Victor C. Ume, OFR. He'll be delivering a message. Please, let's give him a warm round of applause as he makes his way here. Thank you. And of course, you can't miss that red cap anywhere you go. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. I think my tall red cap identifies me more as a former party administrator in Nigeria. So I'm in the right place today, where we're discussing presentation of needs assessments of political parties in Nigeria. But today, I'm here as a representative of the Senate President, who was not a party administrator. He's been in government as former governor, senator, and today, the president of the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The founder of Kukah Centre, Your Excellency Most Reverend Matthew Hassan Kukah, the representative of the Speaker of the House of Representatives, my dear brother, The representatives of the European Union, this is the second time I'm meeting you this year, and the guest speaker today, Professor Azumi, the leaders of the various political parties here present. This is where I belong. I start with the national chairman of the ruling party in Nigeria, His Excellency Dr. Abdullahi Ganduje, and the chairman of the PDP or his representatives, I'm not too sure. The chairman of IPAC, Engineer Yabagi, it's my pleasure, and all the party chairmen gathered here. I recognize, because of the long standing of Chief Rafs Okenwosu, who has been in this struggle for a long time now. When I was national chairman of ABGA for 10 years, he was national chairman of African Democratic Congress. So he's one of the oldest party chairmen in this hall in terms of tenure. The representative of the INEC chairman, the Honorable Commissioner, is you. Leaders of the various civil society organizations here. I've seen the woman with the wig, the biggest wig, Mrs. Ene Obi. These are people I have met at various times. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and then, of course, gentlemen of the press. I'm here to present a speech because the Senate President indeed prepared a speech which he asked me to read on his behalf. The representative of the Honorable Speaker had said it all. This is a time we are working on the national budget for 2024. The President just led the budget on Wednesday last week. We had debate on the budget for 2 days, Thursday and Friday, and now is the critical aspect of that budget. Dissecting the budget and receiving the people from the various agencies to come and defend that budget, to show cause why the National Assembly should appropriate their requests into the form they can execute it. They have the legal right to spend the money. Because all the estimates brought to us by Mr. President, if the National Assembly does not do the needful, the executive will have no authority to touch any money belonging to Nigeria. So this is a time we are very busy trying to look at the budget critically in terms of sectoral allocations and the direction the government is going. But so far, so good. So on this note, I want to convey the esteemed considerations of Mr. Senate President, who would have loved to be here, but because of the demands of duty, what we are doing is very time-consuming at this time. So I plead for indulgence. Let me go straight and read his speech as prepared. This is a speech presented by the President of the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Distinguished Senator Godswill Obot Akpabio, CON, on the question of the presentation of the book, Needs Assessment of Political Parties in Nigeria. It is with great pleasure and honor that I stand before you today, on his behalf, of course, as we gather to witness the public presentation of the Needs Assessment of Political Parties in Nigeria by the Kukah Centre. This event symbolizes our commitment to strengthening democratic governance in Nigeria with the support of the European Union, support to democratic governance in Nigeria, EU-SDGN, through their program. So, every representative, I thank you because many places have seen you putting money to advance the cause of democracy in Nigeria in terms of sensitization and mobilization of our efforts. It has been said that every institution is a lengthened shadow of one man. This institution and this work is a lengthened shadow of a man who has emerged as a light that our country can turn to in times of eclipse. The Reverend Father, the Most Reverend Matthew Hassan Kukah, represents the best in us. He was a member of the Nigerian Investigation Commission of Human Rights Violations. He was the secretary of the National Political Reform Conference in 2005. He has been the chairman of the Ogoni Shell Reconciliation between 2007 and 2009. He was in the Committee for Electoral Reform. And as mentioned, he has been playing a very critical role in the Peace Committee that has been behind the peace accord in all major elections in Nigeria, along with General Absalami Abubakar retired. Your Lordship, we are very grateful to you that you can find time within their ecclesiastical responsibilities to devote so much time in trying to contribute towards deepening the cause of democracy in Nigeria. And this one you are doing today, again, is one of such major contributions. So may God bless you. It was needful to give honor to whom honor is due. This honor is due to you because most people stay as armchair critics. You won't see them in the front line. You won't see them contributing to national discourse that will engender a viable democracy for Nigeria. But from your episcopal duties notwithstanding, you still put yourself forward as an active citizen in Nigeria. We have followed your activities in this country with pride, that even when some people want to keep quiet, you bring out your neck and your head to speak the truth. Truth is costly in any society that is undergoing a process of change and development. So we commend you. Mr. President of the Senate says I should tell you a big thank you for the efforts you are making. In the last 2 decades, since the return to democracy in 1999, Nigeria's political landscape has witnessed significant transformations. This evolution can be attributed to the relentless efforts of various stakeholders and institutions, including our citizens and political parties. It is important to acknowledge and appreciate the noteworthy accomplishments that have been achieved during this process. However, it is equally critical to recognize and address the accompanying challenges that we have faced along the way. Today's theme is very poignant, very apt, because the leadership any country gets depends on what the political parties do. Political parties produce leaders in any democracy. At least in Nigeria, we don't have independent candidates. So anybody who will be anything in Nigeria must come through the political parties. It's a turf I have operated in over the years, and I know that it is garbage in, garbage out. What the political parties bring out are the people you vote for, the people you elect. Their choices are limited to those the political parties present to you during elections. The National Commissioner of INEC alluded to it in his goodwill message. Therefore, the political parties are the engine room of this change that we desire, we yearn for. We are in dire need of internal democracy in political parties. That's why I'm also happy that Dr. Ganduje is here and all the major political party leaders. I join them in saying that this is well attended, because before, in gatherings like this, you don't see the big masquerades. They live above the shadow. But for them to sit in here, we sincerely hope that from what will happen here, from this needs assessment, you will take a lot home to help Nigeria produce very credible and wonderful leaders. The progress made in the evolution of Nigeria's political party system is commendable. Yes, we've not gotten it the way everybody yearns for. So much work needs to be done, particularly in strengthening internal democracy, in the way we nominate candidates that contest elections. If we're able to democratize our internal party nomination processes, we shall hope to have better candidates that will stand for elections, and those who will win will meet the expectations of the citizens. So greater work lies in this needs assessment. So the progress made in this evolution of Nigeria's political party system is commendable. We have witnessed the emergence and growth of diverse political parties, each representing the aspirations and dreams of different segments of our society. These parties have not only provided platforms for citizens to participate in the democratic process, but have also played a vital role in shaping our nation's policies and governance structures. However, it would be wrong of us not to acknowledge the issues that have marred our democratic culture. Lack of accountability, inclusivity, transparency, and impunity are more significant challenges that we must confront. These issues have led to a decrease in public trust and peace. It is disheartening to witness citizens disenchanted with the very institutions that should represent their interests and safeguard their democratic rights. This we hope to change in the 10th National Assembly. Accountability is the bedrock of any democratic society. It is crucial that political parties are accountable to the people they serve. Party leaders must be held responsible for their actions and decisions, and mechanisms for transparency and oversight should be put in place. Inclusivity is another vital aspect of our democracy. Political parties should actively strive towards ensuring that every citizen has a voice and an opportunity to participate in the political process. By doing so, we can embrace the diversity of our nation and foster a sense of belonging among all Nigerians. Furthermore, enhancing transparency within our political parties is essential for building trust and confidence. Party financing and campaign expenditures must be made public and subject to scrutiny. This will minimize the potential for corruption and illicit activities that erode public trust in the democratic process. Lastly, addressing impunity within political parties is paramount. Individuals who engage in unethical or illegal practices must be held accountable, regardless of their position or influence. This will send a strong message to our democratic institutions, that our democratic institutions are not above the law, and the rule of law applies to all. The publication of the needs assessment of political parties in Nigeria serves as a valuable resource and roadmap for addressing these challenges. It provides a comprehensive analysis of the strengths and weaknesses of our political parties and offers valuable recommendations for reform. In fact, we are already looking into some of these issues. In line with this, recently a town hall meeting on electoral reform was organized by the National Assembly, Joint Committee on Electoral Matters, and I hope that the Kukah Centre made it to that critical meeting, that crucial meeting. I commend the Kukah Centre for their dedication to promoting democratic governance in Nigeria, and the European Union for their unwavering support in this endeavor. In conclusion, our journey towards a stronger and more accountable political party system is not without obstacles, yet with collective determination and a commitment to democratic ideals, we can overcome these challenges. Let us seize this opportunity to reflect on the evolution of Nigeria's political parties and recommit ourselves to building a democratic culture, transparency, and accountability. Together, we can restore public trust and confidence in our political parties, ensuring that they remain true representatives of the aspirations of our people. Thank you, and may God bless you. I wish you very fruitful deliberations in this event. God bless you.
Thank you so much, distinguished Senator Victor Ome. Please, another round of applause for him. And thanks for the kind words and delivering the Senate President's speech. We appreciate you. All right, so we're moving right on to the next item of our agenda, which is actually one of the reasons we are here, to hear the findings of the needs assessment. And we'll have this presented by one who is the Chief of Staff to the Speaker of the House of Representatives. That's Right Honorable Abbas Tajuddin, PhD, a professor of political science and development studies, who is a director at the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies, and previously worked as a special assistant to the President of the Senate, Senator Dr. David Mark, GCON, until 2013. Indeed, he has extensive experience of the legislature, of parliamentary capacity development, and of course, he's here to give us what exactly this report, this needs assessment findings are all about. Please, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, join in as we welcome Professor Jake D. Dung Azumi to give us the findings of the report. A warm applause for him, please. Thank you. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. I have been asked by my friend and my elder brother, Barkindo, to restrict my presentation to 15, 20 minutes at most, he said. And he was able to get me to commit to meeting with that timeline. And as a very popular politician used to say, a promise is a promise. So I would try as much as possible to keep it to 20 minutes. But also a brief disclaimer, Bishop Kukah. I am making this presentation not as Chief of Staff to the Right Honorable Speaker, but as a lead researcher on this very project, given that I've been working with the Kukah Centre on this several months before I was called to be the Chief of Staff to the Right Honorable Speaker. To run quickly through this, so this is a project of the Kukah Centre. It's been running for quite a bit, and what I will do very quickly is run us through some of the substance of what this study has been able to throw up. So as has been said earlier, the context is the recognition of the linkage between political parties and the health of democracy in general. And I think this is, of course, where the support of the EU and other partners came in to see as much as possible how can political parties be strengthened, how can the structures be made more inclusive and transparent and value-driven, and of course, how can we ultimately strengthen democracy in Nigeria? So the core objectives of the study, of course, was to look at the needs of political parties. And some of the specific objectives were to collate and review previous assessment on the capacities and competencies of political parties. Some studies have been done in the past, notably by my colleague Jibo Ibrahim under the EU-DGD projects some years ago. Recently, there have been one or two attempts also at conducting needs assessment of political parties. So we were basically interested in looking at their operations, the policies, the recruitment structure, membership database, and compliance with extant rules and regulations. So some of those were the issues we were looking at. The general scope of the study, we looked at both political parties at the national but also at the subnational level, looking more importantly at the national and the state offices rather than cascading them to local governments. The thematic areas covered include the ideological and policy positions of political parties, political party organizational structure, internal party processes, membership, funding, which has been addressed by IPAC chairman here, legislative profile, capacity building, communication, and electoral campaigns. And of course, I will not look at this in greater detail, but I will quickly run through them and focus more on some of the recommendations arising from this study. The structure of the report, as you will see very shortly, the structure of the report is such that it covers introduction, which offers some basic background materials on the importance of political parties, the relevance of parties, the challenges, and the evolution of political parties. We've also looked at the historical background to political party development in Nigeria And we did this in phases. We looked at the period between 1959 to 1983, and then 1999 to 2023, focusing more on the emergence of the PDP, the emergence of the APC post-2015, and of course, subsequent developments with political parties. There is a section on methodology. I think I will not be true to my academic background, and I've seen some of my senior colleagues here, Professor Ibainu, Professor Hassan Saliu, and of course, my own good friend and director, Aderemi. So there's a whole section on methodology that you can look at your spare time. These are sections that you grill students during exams for. But this is not strictly an academic work, so I won't take too much time on that. But just to say that the study focused on all the 18 political parties that contested in the 2023 general elections. And of course, we did a very thorough job of ensuring that the method or the methodology adopted was that of triangulation of methods. So we adopted methodological triangulation, where we had both qualitative and quantitative aspects to the study that included the use of questionnaires, but also interviews, in-depth interviews and focus group discussions, focusing on both political parties, but also other stakeholders, including civil society groups, namely media, the academics, and all whatnot. So all that is detailed in the section on methodology. In all, we had about 30 in-depth interviews covering 11 parties that were able to respond. But we were, of course, able to administer over 360 questionnaires, 20 for each of the 18 political parties, out of which about 203 questionnaires were returned. These were analyzed and, of course, comprising respondents both from national and subnational level. So what are some of the findings from this study? I think the first relates to the constitutional and regulatory frameworks. And, of course, one of the questions asked respondents was their knowledge and their familiarity with the constitutional and legal frameworks regulating political parties, as well as the adequacy of some of those frameworks. And it will please you to know that a lot of those who responded seem to demonstrate awareness of what these frameworks are, but of course, feedback on the adequacy was two-sided, whereas there are some that feel that these are strong enough. Many others feel that the current constitutional, regulatory, and statutory frameworks that regulate political parties in Nigeria are not adequate and they are not robust enough. And of course, some of them pointed to the issues of the proliferation of political parties despite all the recent attempts at pruning them down, and also the non-viability, to quote some of the respondents, of some of the political parties. In all, however, there's a sense that you get that a lot of those who operate in this terrain, in this field, are quite conversant with some of these frameworks. How about ethical guidelines? One of the things we look at was ethical guidelines in political parties. And interestingly, because a lot of question has been raised on how political parties run their operations and if they have well-articulated ethical guidelines. A lot of those who were interviewed and those, of course, who responded to the questionnaires seem to agree that there are some form of ethical guidelines. However, if you do an analysis of the constitutions of all the various political parties, very few of them have explicit ethical guidelines in the constitution. A few parties do have. Some have it as an annex to the constitution, but a good number, including APC, APM, ABGA, only state that it is the responsibility of the BOT to draw up a code of conduct for its members. But then, of course, it's not clearly stated, even after attempts by the researchers to see if there was any such document that was developed. That often was not easily available. On the adequacy of political party constitutions, this, as you know, is one of the most significant aspects of the operations of political parties, is the framework that regulates political parties, internally most especially. A lot of those who were interviewed seem to point to the lack of depth in some of the political party constitutions. In other words, whereas in some cases, members seem to be very much impressed or satisfied with the content of political party constitutions, some respondents mentioned that many of the other political parties seem to have plagiarized their constitutions or simply copied their constitutions from other parties or online. or however that is done. So sometimes it's not very easy to distinguish one political party constitution and another party political constitution, because all of them seem to, of course, being copied from the same source or developed by the same consultants. And I'm not guilty of that, please. There are a few people who responded to say that sometimes political party constitutions are either deliberately disregarded or written deliberately to favor some individuals to remain perpetually in leadership. This was something that came up in some of the interviews and some of the questionnaires that were distributed. On the ideology of political parties, very interesting. 90% of those who were interviewed, if you ask them, does your party have an ideology? The answer is yes, they do. But the problem starts when you ask them to articulate what that ideology is. And as you will see, a good chunk of those who claim that the party has a political ideology end up not being able to say what that ideology is. And even where you press for answers, some of them conflate the political party objectives as contained in the Constitution or the party logo or other party documents. They seem to conflate that with the political party ideology. So it's often not very clear whether parties or those who responded, especially members of the various political parties, actually understand what the ideology of their parties are. Interestingly, and this, of course, ties into the earlier point I made about the similarity in the constitution of political parties. Most of the political parties on the section that deals with the ideology of parties make a reference to the objectives and directive principles of state policy contained in Chapter 2 of the 1999 Constitution as their ideology. Basically, you can see it in the Constitution where it says Chapter 2 of the Constitution, which, of course, outlines what the directive principles of state policy should be. Many parties think that that is what their ideology is. But, of course, which means that a substantial number of members think that parties do not actually follow up with their constitution in administering the party, in developing policies, and so on and so forth. And that is why, if you see in the report, there's a huge section that discusses the feeling of members that sometimes ideology is sidelined when it comes to the issue of party politics. In fact, a lot of them cited the fluidity in party membership and the ease with which political party officials move from one party to the other. And for them, this is an indication that it's not really because of any firm or any strong ideological position. It's simply a vehicle to gain power or to remain relevant. So these are all very important findings that you can look at. We have asked a lot of political parties what the pressing issues for them are at the moment. Very interesting responses. But a good number of them agree that revisiting and amending the 2022 Electoral Act to reduce the influence of the judiciary on the general conduct of the election as something that is very, very important to them. Of course, there are other issues that they have raised which we can look at. Internal party processes, very important, and I think all the previous people that gave goodwill, including Bishop Kukah, in his welcome address, mentioned how the internal party process of a party obviously ultimately reflects on the outcomes, the people who are presented, and even what ends up sometimes in the court processes. So a lot of those who responded seem to suggest that they are satisfied overall with internal party processes, but of course there is a good number of them who suggest that internal party democracy is very weak in some cases, and that often candidates are imposed. And a good number of people have mentioned the influence of money bags on political party processes and the ease with which the current structure of political parties allows people with wealth to hijack the whole party process. And I think this is something that has been highlighted very much in this study. The issue of inclusion was raised by the EU representative here. A lot of that has been discussed. On paper, many of the political parties have made valid attempts to include people living with disabilities and also to include women, even in party manifesto and also in the constitution of political parties. In some cases, they have discounted tickets, the cost of purchasing party tickets, and some other incentives basically to encourage women participation. This also is highlighted in this. So at the end of the day, a lot of those who responded believe that the internal party processes of political parties can be strengthened and that the role of INEC in that regard can also further be enhanced. The control of party resources. The answers here varied from the different political parties, whereas there are those who feel that funds are properly managed, especially through the instrumentality of the NWC and the NEC. A few individuals have pointed during this study that a handful of people in some political parties hold excessive influence on the party, and they believe that because of that, they are able to also exercise undue influence. And where there are a few strong men controlling the party, it's also very easy to hijack the political party or to have it bought over by money bags. There are other sections that deal with strategies of parties. Again, interestingly, if you ask all the political party members present here, probably you will get the same answer. The question was, does your political party have a strategic plan? And the overwhelming answer is yes. The second leg of the question, can we see a sample of that plan? Then, of course, people start to stutter. And throughout this study, no one political party was able to present a cohesive and a coherent strategic plan that has been developed and is in public circulation. So again, this is something that the political party actors here need to look at. There are other sections that deal with strategies for expanding and consolidating political base that is also contained in the study. Membership profile, very interesting. Again, on the face of it, and this is why you have to support your interviews and your questionnaires with desk and field research. 98% of those who participated in this study agreed that there's a formal membership process, there's a formal membership register, and so on and so forth. It was impossible throughout this study for any of those who participated in this research to actually cite any register of any political party. In that case, many were not verified and they could not be easily cited. And therefore, you can see the differences. Whereas YPP, for instance, indicates it has more than 3 million registered voters, the APC puts the size of its party to about 42 million people, and so on and so forth. You can look at the other data in the report. But it's very difficult to take it up, with them because you really have any evidence. There is no centralized register of members with their contacts details that you can easily access. It's just not something that is very present. On the other hand, a lot has been done by many political parties to streamline the process, to strengthen it, to remove duplications, and to make sure that these registers are up to scratch. But if you go through the study, you see that often this has not been finalized yet. A lot of other political parties have introduced online registration portals, and I've included that in the study. You can look at ADP, APC, Boot Party, Labour Party, NRM, PRP, and YPP. All of these parties have online registration platforms that allow citizens to register for these parties easily online if they so wish. However, on a few occasions, these websites were flagged off as being unsafe or non-functional. So political parties, I'm sure you will take note. There's a whole section on legislative profile. During the course of this study, it will interest you to know that the language we use to describe parties other than PDP and APC as smaller parties, they don't like the name. So it's something that they frowned upon. But more than that, what became very apparent is that whereas some of the traditional bigger parties have political party caucuses in parliament, some of the other parties, the smaller parties, to use that word that they don't like, a lot of them do not have that. And in fact, so many of the new actors, the newer political parties with fewer representation in parliament, mentioned that it's very difficult for them to keep track with their members. In fact, it's as though as soon as those members win election into either the Senate or the House of Reps, they stop being accountable to the political party. And a lot of other parties mentioned this as a significant challenge. The bigger traditional parties seem to be doing better because they seem to have a very strong political party caucus in the House. There are issues to do with capacity development, but I will look at funding very quickly. I think this is a substantial problem for many political parties. And if you look at the report, you will see how they are able to generate funding. A lot of it comes from selling forms, expression of interest forms, and nomination forms. Some parties were very forthright about their earnings. The YPP, for instance, projected that it raised about 200 million from the sale of forms in 2023, and an additional 20 to 30 million from monthly subscriptions. This is negligible compared to APC, for instance, which was projected to have raised over 30 billion, while PDP inflow was placed at over 276 million naira in the 2023 through sales of forms of expression of interest and nomination forms. So you can see that funding is a significant challenge for a lot of the newer parties than the traditional parties. And this, of course, came up very prominently, and I think I will come back to it when I discuss what some of these respondents believe are alternative ways of funding political parties, especially because many of the newer parties believe that given the current financial position that they are in, it's very difficult to consider them as being sustainable in the long run. There are structures for communicating with the public. Sometimes it's defined through the publicity secretary. There is an embracing of new technology in communicating with the public, and of course, this is also highlighted in this very study. There is also a bit to do with electoral campaign and how this is organized in the various political parties, whereas in some instances, the political parties have a structure in place to make sure that there is coordination with regards to electoral campaign. In many instances, individual candidates are left alone to run their own campaign. So again, these are highlighted in the study. So finally, to look at some of the recommendations. And I think this is perhaps where a lot of innovation and a lot of insight can be gleaned from what some of the respondents have said. With regards to the constitutional and statutory frameworks, there are strong recommendations here. One, for the unbundling of INEC. Surprisingly, this recommendation was supported by even respondents from INEC themselves, whereby they feel that the responsibility assigned INEC in the Electoral Act is a bit unwieldy. And therefore, there is a suggestion, for instance, that when it comes to the registration of political parties, the tracking of party finances, the prosecution of electoral offenses, those should not be the concern of INEC. In other words, INEC should be left with the primary responsibility of conducting elections. So there's a proposal here, a recommendation by a lot of those we interviewed, that a separate piece of legislation should be enacted by the National Assembly to regulate political parties. There is also recommendations on reform of INEC, especially pertaining to how the chairman and the resident electoral commissioners are chosen in order to ensure accountability. The whole idea is to reduce the influence of the executive in the election of the chairman of INEC and also the resident electoral commission. The need for stricter supervision and continuous verification of membership and party offices and structures by INEC. I mentioned already the issue of unbundling of INEC, and I mentioned here in the slide, you will see where the INEC chairman said that INEC at the present moment is saddled with so many responsibilities that it deters it from doing some of its other responsibilities effectively. The issue that Bishop Kukah raised about continuous and strict review and to ensure strict compliance to the Electoral Act 2022. A lot of issues were raised with regards to the Electoral Act, and I think this was, of course, because this study was undertaken in the aftermath of the 2023 general elections. Some of the recommendations include providing a legislative backing for the mandatory use of technology in elections and the transmission of results. Some people emphasize the need to develop homegrown technology, as is the practice in many parts of the world, rather than rely on the use of ICT consultants, some of whom are not even Nigerians and some of whom do not feel they have any obligation to this country. There are those, of course, who mention the need to strengthen the framework for conducting elections at the local level. I'm not too sure how legal some of the recommendations are, but somebody mentioned that just as INEC is involved in conducting gubernatorial elections at the state level, INEC should also be involved in some way in conducting local government elections, working, of course, with the CX. Again, these are all, recommendations that can be fleshed out and strengthened eventually. This is the recommendation that the conduct of elections should be strengthened at the state level, especially at the local level, is given to diminish or to reduce the dominance of governors who use their powers and resources, some respondents say, to hijack the whole process at the local level. So there are other recommendations on political party management and also to ensure accountability on how they can ensure proper record of members' registers that should be accessible to the public, maintaining well-functioning websites and intranet, and of course, developing internal communication methods. Financing, very important, and I think this will be the final point that I make. Innovative ways of party financing. The emphasis here, as I mentioned earlier, is what has been considered the undue influence of money in politics in Nigeria, both at the party level and also at the level of the general elections. And I think a lot of respondents stated that this is probably one of the most significant challenges to Nigeria's democracy at the moment. Because ultimately, if the process can be bought over, it reduces legitimacy, it also leads to apathy, and at the end of the day, it leads to loss of faith in democracy and the values that it represents. And so, many people feel in the course of this study that there should be innovative ways of financing political parties. And some of these include funding arrangements by the government for political parties to reduce opportunities for hijacking and also influence of money bags. There are those who recommended government funding or subsidy to political parties. The first is funding based on the number of seats won in the National Assembly, as is practiced in some other federal states like Germany. Such funds should be properly utilized, and there should be framework for regular auditing. A few other interviewees recommended government funding for candidates rather than political parties. And of course, they gave example in the US, where under the Presidential Public Funding Program, eligible presidential candidates receive federal government funds to pay for the qualified expenses of their political parties in both the primary and general elections. So rather than fund political parties, some of the recommendations said we should instead fund individuals. Other recommendations include expanding the membership base, encouraging members to pay their dues, and of course promoting donations to campaigns as practiced in the US. Some of the specific guidelines for party financing that need to be encouraged based on the recommendations here include restrictions and limits on private contributions to political parties and candidates, balance between private and public spending, restrictions on the use of state resources for political campaign by incumbent governments, fair criteria for the allocation of public financial support, spending limits for campaigns. This is contained in the Electoral Act 2022, but requires more robust enforcement. And then, of course, issues that have to do with transparency and independent regulatory mechanisms. Overall, this, I think, summarizes what you will see in the report. For any academic, engaging in such an exercise is always a humbling experience. I entered this exercise believing that the outcome will be as negative and as damning and also as gloomy as always. But during one of the interviews, one of those senior government figures I interviewed told me, he said, "Prof, it's very easy to think that we are not making progress, but I think we are making substantial progress. It may be slow, but there is progress." And he gave me the example. He said several years ago, it's impossible to conceive of somebody who is not known contesting an election against a governor, or even thinking that you could come up against a very powerful individual and win an election. And the example he gave me was my own governor in Taraba State, who ran for a Senate seat and lost to a car dealer from the same constituency. And he was like, 10, 15 years ago, this was inconceivable. So it's easy to think that we are not making progress. But a lot of those who we have talked to in this study say, we are making progress. It's just that we can do better and that there is room for growth. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
I think he deserves another round of applause. Indeed, the researcher in him came out. Thank you so much, Professor Jake D. Dung-Azumi. We appreciate you, sir, for the great work you have done, and to the entire team as well, involved in this. Well done, and thank you for bringing this all to light. And it's in that spirit that we're actually going into the panel discussion to take a deeper look into developing and sustaining a political culture of integrity and accountability. Now, this is to explore the findings from the Needs Assessment Report, focus on political culture, as well as the operations of political parties which continue to shape public discourse. And of course, all this is with a view to charting possible pathways for a change of this dominant narrative and the role of different stakeholders, particularly politicians, in facilitating this shift. All right, so to take charge of the panel discussion right away, I'd like to invite my friend and sister, Maope Ogun Yusuf, a broadcaster, to take charge as the moderator of this panel. Please let's give her a warm applause.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, without much ado, I'm just going to be inviting members of my panel. I understand that we're supposed to have, well, they're already here, thankfully, a representative from INEC, and this morning we have with us Mr. Sam Olumekun, who is a National Commissioner for Party Monitoring and Voter Education. You're welcome, sir. And also on the panel is someone I have had the opportunity to speak with many times, the chairman of IPAC, Mr. Sani Yusuf Yabagi. Another round of applause as he comes forward. Professor Okechukwu Ibianu, Professor of Political Science at the University of Nsukka, also joins us on this panel. Ms. Eneobi, former convener, Civil Society Situation Room, and immediate past country director of Action Aid, is also going to be on this panel. You're welcome, ma'am. Well, I understand that the chairman or the president of the Nigerian Bar Association is not here yet, so who knows, he might join us while in the course of our discussion. But yes. You're welcome, ma'am. You're welcome. You're welcome, Prof. It's good to see you. Well, a very revealing find, I must say, by the presentation from Professor Jake Dan Azumi, and I'm just going to start from where he left off. He was quite optimistic. He said that as a researcher, carrying out this particular research had left him quite humbled because he was not as optimistic. It doesn't look like the progress that we had made is as obvious, but it does appear that we are making some progress. I'm just going to take a quick, I don't know if you've had, the opportunity to research into this, but from what you can see on the surface, do you share his level of optimism? And I'm going to start with you, Prof. Starting at my very far right. I know that you were on air this morning and you had quite a lot to say, but do you share his level of optimism?
Okay, thank you, and greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, before, I wanted to seize the opportunity that I have, first of all, to assure the Lord Bishop about two things. Unfortunately, he's not here. The first one is that I haven't yet incorporated, as he said. I'm still counting on his prayers that soon I will incorporate. And the experience of Abraham in the Bible assures me that age is not a deterrent. The second assurance is that from all I have seen, since, as he said, we wrote all those incendiary things in the 70s and 80s, I haven't seen anything to convince me that there has been any change. So to that extent, I'm not sure I'm as optimistic as my brother Dan Azumi.
and his researchers. And that is not in any way to take anything away from the fantastic work they have done. But I think in order not to create a gloomy picture, I think the jury is still out about the performance and future of political parties in Nigeria. And the best I can say is that it presents a mixed bag. There have been, definitely, we have made some progress, but I think there are also several issues to be addressed. And some of the things I take away from His Lordship's welcome address, these two key issues of a rule crisis and an ideological crisis within political parties. In fact, in an upcoming book, we make a distinction between an authoritarian tendency within the gates, within the political parties, and an expectation that they should lead democratic processes outside political parties. That remains a very fundamental contradiction. But I guess you're already looking at me that I need to stop. So I think it's a mixed bag. But congratulations to the Kukah Centre and to Professor Dan Azumi for a great job. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Prof, for your intervention. This is a question that's going to go around. This was not how I intended to start this conversation. I intended to start by giving my own experience of a conversation I had on set with then he was a governor of a state. He was a two-time governor and later on became minister. And I think while in the course of conversation, I simply asked, what is the essence of politics? My expectation was that it was going to be development. I mean, I think that was the answer I expected. Well, to my shock, my mouth was agape after I asked that question and the response I got. He simply told me power. The essence of politics is power. And I think that exposed my own naivety because I had expected another response. But as I did say, this question, the very first question I was asking, as to whether or not you shared Professor Azumi's optimism was going to be for all members of the panel. So, Madam Eniobi, it's over to you now. I'm hoping that we can get a quick response so we can delve into some of the things that Professor Ebianu has already started talking about.
Thank you very much, and I want to say congratulations to the Kukah Centre for a great job, and also to the EU for supporting the process thus far. In terms of optimism, I think, and I like the saying or the thoughts of Bishop Kukah himself, who has been a mentor, a great mentor indeed, who said, I'm hopelessly hopeful for Nigeria. Because with all the work that he did towards 2023, you will see somebody who would have retired to somewhere and say, let me go and sit down because of some disappointments. I'm equally a very hopeful person. That you may look at progress in terms of, because I'm on this side and the only female, when you are looking at progress in terms of, the quality of those who are making decisions on behalf of Nigeria, you look at a totally male parliament. When you have 16 out of 360, and then you have 4 out of over 100, then you begin to think about the issues of inclusivity, of whether, and I remember last year, women after 2019 went to the table to try to get judgment, which they got, and that judgment was even contested by the Attorney General himself. And so one of the gender bills that was talking about is about women representation, about how they have been able to, in other countries, corrected the imbalance of the quality of decision makers in their own population. And I used to think that the Federal Character Commission used the Federal Character, principles to correct the quality of those who are making decisions on behalf of the country. And so I look at that. In terms of ideological base, it's like you are looking at copy and paste. If you look at many of the constitutions and also the strategies that they have, is a bit of copy and paste. And it will be important for people to look at political education. the issues of political education. The responsibilities are from the political parties, from INEC, from National Orientation Agency, and also from the institutions, from, from the academic institutions as well, because civic education one time got lost from our curriculum. So I think it is important, the issue of transparency and accountability. I'm so happy that today we have the major political parties also represented. We had so many parties, many events. Engineer Yabagi has done a lot of work. I've been, into their retreat several times. But you hardly will find the major political parties in a political administration. What you are doing, the quality of the democracy is how you attach connectivity and also how you attach importance to the development of the political process. So I want to commend them for being here today. I want them not to, because IPAC is supposed to be an umbrella organization, and sometimes they work. So we want to look at the quality of citizenship. That's another thing I have to talk about. When you sing the national anthem, we are talking of how the behavioral process is in the political process. You're looking at the national anthem, Arise, O compatriot. Who is the compatriot? Is it political people? The nation is looking at you. It's very, very important. This is a huge discussion.
So
I pledge to Nigeria, my country. Who are the politicians pledging to? It's important for us to deepen this in the political process. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to go with the very first statement which you made, which is saying that you're going to, stand on all fours or stay on all fours with Bishop when he says this. Is it hopelessly hopeful? Hopelessly hopeful was the term. Well, I'm going to, beg your pardon, never give up. Okay, fantastic. Well, I'll be very surprised if you're not hopeful, Mr. Yabagisani. I will about the state of our political affairs. But how much progress would you say that we've made?
Well, thank you very much for this question. I believe democracy is a journey, and there's never a point at which you say it's perfect. No, you keep improving on it, as you go along. In our own particular case, shall we say that we have reached that steady state, of development of democracy in Nigeria? Maybe we are near there. Because when you look at the underlying conditions, and I also like to quote the bishop. I was in a program where he said, elections are just like weddings. The actual issue is in the marriage, which means governance. But unfortunately, we tend to concentrate more on elections in our democratic, development. You will hear some people saying that 2021 has already started, how to win 2021 elections. So it's not so much about how to govern, properly, so that the electorate will now feel the impact of democracy itself. What am I trying to say? Is that we have two underlying conditions in this country, that until we address them effectively, it will be a vicious cycle. What are they? High level of poverty, endemic ignorance amongst our people. And where these conditions exist, believe me, democracy is like a dream. So we need to really interrogate and then solve this problem. Number two, the presentation by Professor Dazani, he indicated that all of us are victims of circumstance, including INEC. Why? Because here you are with a situation where the umpire is appointed by an active participant in the exercise itself, in the game, in the contest. So I don't know what magic we expect the umpire to perform when their appointment, their welfare, their everything is in the hands of one individual who is also a key participant, an active participant in the process itself. So that we also have to interrogate and correct. Some people are like my sister here has said that he's commending APC and other parties. No, we are today having Democrats, full-fledged Democrats at the helm of affairs. That's why you see former governor of, two-term governor of Kano State here, sitting here. Not only here, there's no program that we organize that he's either not there personally or send somebody. So also you have Raf here, who is the oldest, one of the oldest chairmen of political parties you can see, and the PDP, and you have the youth party, Umar, the party that which became just the 19th political party in Nigeria. So believe you me, what we are having today in Nigeria is what you can call the roosters come home to roost. Why? Because by some arrangements, you have full-fledged Democrats at the House of Affairs, both at the political parties and also at the executive. So we expect that some of these gaps that exist today, which has made us to be victims of circumstance, I'm talking about political parties and even the umpire, will be revisited by the National Assembly. And I'm glad that distinguished Senator Ome is here, and also the representative of the Speaker is here, that we take a look at the Electoral Act 2022, because what it has done, believe you me, if we do not revisit it, it is like a recipe for crisis for most of us, especially the growing political parties, in the scheme of things. So I think, yes, the job done by Kukah Centre is a wonderful exercise. I'm really, really, really pleasantly surprised by the depth of what they have brought out in terms of research and the findings, which is for us to say, like I said, democracy journey, we can take it from what they have said and then improve on what we have been having in this country as democracy, because Nigeria, like we all know, is a leader, we are in all respect. So I commend the exercise, and I also would like Kukah Centre to continue to do what they are doing, because we are today 100 years, in practicing party democracy in this country. Since 1923, when Herbert Macaulay registered the first political party following the Clifford Constitution, today is 2023, we have spent 100, in spite of all the ups and downs.
100 years, the question,
we must be able to commend ourselves and ensure that by century, when we...
Mr. Sani, I'm afraid I'll have to interrupt you. I'm afraid I have to interrupt you. Yes, you've rightly pointed out, we're now 100 years. I think just to signpost what it is we're discussing, or what we've been asked to discuss, the discussion is supposed to focus on developing and sustaining a political culture of integrity and accountability. I think when the Kukah Centre asks us to have that sort of discussion, it shows that something is missing somewhere. And in spite of the fact that we've had political parties in Nigeria for 100 years now, there are big questions around the integrity of political parties. There are big questions around the accountability systems within political parties. And I think the entire essence of this is to find out what it is that political parties need to be able to entrench this culture of accountability and even democracy. Because Professor also made reference to the fact that we have autocratic systems within political parties, and yet they're supposed to deliver democracy or operate within a democratic space. There are very big contradictions there. So I'm going to come to you, National Commissioner. You have the onerous task of monitoring political parties. I don't know whether educating them will also be, because voter education is supposed to be, but I also imagine that political party education might be incorporated into monitoring of political parties. First and foremost, while I'm not going to ask you whether or not you share Professor Azumi's optimism, I'm going to ask you whether you think, from your own standpoint, from what you have seen monitoring political parties, do you really think that we have political parties in every sense of the word and definition? I'm going to request other panelists to put up their mics when they're not speaking. And then, yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, when Reverend Father Bakindo and his team came to interview us at the commission about this research project, I knew they were going on a journey that will have to take a long time. But surprisingly, they have come up with a very succinct analysis of what political parties are as of today. Take it or leave it, they have examined the structure, financing, and all the issues that are concerned with political parties. Yes, it is important to point out the fact that building a democratic political culture is a long-term process. We are always in a hurry. We should not be hopelessly hopeless. A long-term process that requires commitment, collaboration of political parties, even civil society organizations, government institutions, and the entire citizenry. By focusing on these key areas, Nigeria can foster a democratic political culture that promotes citizen participation, accountability, and good governance. I'm not going to lose hope. I believe that we are making progress. Even whether you ask me or not, I will tell you that we are making progress in our journey to a democratic system. I say so in spite of the harsh criticisms that INEC has gone through, especially in the last couple of months. We have today a National Assembly that is as much as possible diverse. We have people who have been elected from various political parties, and that speaks volume.
So you agree that we have political parties in every sense of the definition of the word?
Well, we have political parties that are performing the functions of political parties in a democracy. You will recall there was a time where when we had 93 political parties. Of course, they were pruned down by legal requirements to the 19 that we have today. Let me tell you one secret. Today, we have about 25 political associations that have applied to INEC that they want to register as political parties. If political parties are not functioning well, why are groups coming up to say they want to be political parties? I also want to state categorically that the reform we're asking for should be a reform of our behavior, not necessarily of our laws. We have laws that can guide our interactions, that can work on elections, in conducting elections. But we have to reform our minds and we have to reform our behavior, our political behavior, so we can get to that point. But take it from me that attaining democratic process is not going to be a 100-meter dash. It is going to be a long and tortuous race, because you also have diverse interests within political parties as much as you have within societies. And what you are looking for in a political party is not necessarily what I am looking for in a political party. I will rest my case for now.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you so much for your intervention. I saw some people clapping already when you affirmed that we have political parties. And I'm going to go right back to you, Prof. And there's a reason for that, because oftentimes I know that they're very elaborate definitions. A very quick check, if you were to put in political parties, just in your Google Chrome, for instance, to ask, what is a political party? The first thing you'll see is that the organizations, organized to acquire and exercise power. And then it also says that they may hold similar ideas and also promote specific ideological or policy goals. But it does appear that that second part is optional.
Well, if I understand your question correctly, I think one tragedy of Nigerian political parties is that they have essentially been organized as bodies for winning elections. Even if you look at the alteration of Section 225 of the Constitution about the deregistration of parties, it focuses essentially on their performances during elections. But the literature is clear. It's not just about political recruitment, I mean the role of political parties. It's about interest articulation, aggregation, political education, holding government accountable, and so on. There's a whole array of functions of political parties. Unfortunately, in Nigeria, they are essentially tools for capturing power. And once that becomes the case, and in the context of the ideological confusion, you then see that they don't really function effectively as political parties outside the elections. And you can see that the level of participation in political education and socialization and so on is quite low. Everybody is focused on winning election, and whatever it takes to win election, they will do. And this is really the Achilles heel of political parties. And the implication of that, going back to the topic, is that integrity and accountability gets sacrificed on the altar of winning power. And I think that is what we need to go back to look at the tracks for ensuring integrity and accountability of political parties in Nigeria. Otherwise, they will continue to be, without sounding too critical, to be really dysfunctional, really dysfunctional. If you look at the leadership of the two leading political parties, not big parties, leading political parties, at some point, they will all belong to one party, and now they are all in the other party, and it's just this excessive focus on winning power, leaving behind so many other functions that political parties can perform. And I also must say that our constitution has not been helpful. By trying to homogenize political parties, you must comply to Chapter 2 of the Constitution. You must be national. Nowhere do political parties organize like that. So, and my recommendation has always been that rather than focus on regimentation of political parties, it's actually better to create conditions by which political parties can get on the ballot. And if that is the case, then they can organize to the extent that they have capacity for. To expect a party to have offices all over Nigeria and have members all over Nigeria really undermines some of the most critical elements in the nature of political parties. So I thought I should point those out. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Well, Madam Eniobi, I know that you're very big on inclusivity, and we've been told some of the challenges that we're facing already within the larger Nigerian space. Some of it, I think Mr. Yabagi Sani made reference to it, a high level of poverty and also a high level of ignorance. And sadly, women and, youths and oftentimes too people living with disability fall within this category because of, the already lopsided nature of the education which we provide in the very first instance. From your own experience, and I know that you've been very big on getting women to be included, you've put up very spirited battles in ensuring that political parties, even the country as a whole, incorporates inclusion into its constitution to ensure that there is adequate representation of all political parties, but of all demography. But how big a hindrance do you think it is, this issue of poverty and ignorance?
Thank you very much. Okay, when I was a country director of ActionAid Nigeria, I was leading an organization that was working almost all over the states. And we are still having discussion, in these today that we're discussing, we have more than 140 million Nigerians that are below the poverty line. And it is spread across different geographic areas. And so we are talking about today, when we are also having crises around the country. We have so many IDP, IDP camps all over the place. And the burden bearers are mostly women. And so when you are talking of representation, the nakedness of it is, you have 15 states of the Federation today that do not have a single woman in the Houses of Assembly. And they are going to have committee on women. Who is going to be, that shows the nakedness of what we are talking about, because they have to decide about women. And so in the House of Representatives, you will have many committees on women. Where will the women be? In the Senate, the same thing. What we are saying in terms of developing a political culture, women should not just occupy women's wing and a chair of women's wing or something. Women can be chairmen of political parties. Women can be secretaries of political parties. Women are as educated. Each and every one of you seated here, I'm sure many of you sat with women in the class, through from primary school down to the university and also to professional levels. Women, we have so many qualified women. When we had the Gambo Sawaba, from northern Nigeria. We had Fumila Ransom Kuti from the southwest. We had Margaret Epo. These three women went to fight for the independence of this country. They went to London with Standard 6. But you have millions of women who are engineers. Your daughters are here, but you are ignoring them. A woman, we need to think of who is a woman itself. A woman is your daughter, your mother, your grandmother, your cousin, and all of that put together. We are looking at people with disability. You have a commission of persons with disability. What is done? Thank God we're making progress because we have the commission. But what is being given to them? Are they working? There was progress. The issue of progress. Progress was made in the election by INEC when they brought in, we now have persons with disabilities as ad hoc staff. That has improved from the last election to this election. And then we are looking at, people with thinking faculties. You have persons with disability that are lawyers that are in different fields. They can be included. So why can't we use the present, in terms of the quality of the people, look at our qualities. I think when one of the speakers referred to Father Kukah, Bishop Kukah, he was our father for a very long time, so sometimes save me from not saying bishop. Bishop, you say bishop represents the best of us. So what do you represent? Each and every one of us who are here this morning, what do we represent? We have no other place to go. The song of Sonny Ade that says, Nigeria iti bogowani, that is, Nigeria is for all of us. We have no place to go. What seed are you sowing? Your children are involved. No matter the poverty now, as long as you cannot save the many poor, the very few who are rich, even if it's burglary proof that you are making, burglary proof or is it bulletproof? Bulletproof will not save you because the people will be on the street. So save our children today by taking positive decisions, by being transparent and accountable so that we can move the way forward. So inclusivity is a very, very important way to let people know, let people feel what they feel. There is a lot of crisis, but even in decision-making in terms of those in conflict, women are not there. The quality of any decision-making depends on who is in the boardroom, who is making the decisions. Men, Nigeria is in the last 5 in the world in terms of maternal mortality and, infant mortality. We are not at war. And so, at least the Nigerian government has not declared war. Yet, we are one of the worst. Women are dying in the maternity death road. Go to your localities. The general hospital built by colonial masters is what you are still using. So what is happening? The development and governance that we are talking about. The political structure. You don't have to win an election at a national scale. Can you put your ideology down and even win at the state? Like, I think there are states in Nigeria that some political parties have not bothered, or they have moved forward, but they are not winning so much elections. So I think we need to talk to the political parties, but you are discussing, only men are discussing. Women are not involved, persons with disability. So there is a dysfunctionality in the system. Thank you.
Well, I think that the idea is also to see how we can correct that dysfunctionality. Mr. Yabagisani, you had initially mentioned a number of things. You've talked about, this level of poverty and ignorance being actively hampered by the fact that, many of the people who are there are also appointed by political actors, people who are also interested within, in the game, so to speak. And I'm just wondering, one of the challenges which Professor Azumi talked about, which hinders this culture of integrity and accountability, is how political parties are funded. We used to hear before now how political parties were funded by membership loans or membership dues and the active donation of members of political parties and those who were interested in the ideology that they espoused. Today, we understand that money bags are the ones in charge. And if the political party is lucky, so to speak, they get funded from public coffers, money that's meant for the public, actively being spent by political actors to fund political parties. And so those people have a greater say. And that, in some ways, has kind of turned our politics upside down. I'm wondering, from your own experience and also chairing the IPAC, IPAC is now, a committee is included in it, IPAC body, let me put it that way. What do you think can be done to reverse this?
Well, thank you very much for the question, because my sister here, Ene, mentioned something. She said there are some dysfunctional, developments in the polity itself. If you look at the way we conduct local government elections, and if you look at the fact that that is the nearest tier to the grassroots, you see, the kind of message we are sending to the grassroots is that politics or democracy does not work. And when you give the grassroots that kind of psyche, that kind of mentality, I don't know what we are doing to ourselves. Last Saturday, local government election was conducted in one of the states in Southwest. Some of the parties participated. They were not even allowed to come near the polling units to even cast their votes. At the end of the day, some touts were sent, and then they packed the ballot boxes to somewhere. They start printing and then stuffing the ballot boxes, and they declared themselves. It's a mockery of democracy. It's like an organized crime. When you conduct elections in one state, the entire state, the governor will come and say, we have won. No party in that state is able to win even one seat, even the councillor. So I think it's not just about money. It's about people misusing the political power that they have gotten. So we political parties have to really stand up and do the right thing so that we can avoid this existential development to the democracy itself. Because who is going to protect democracy if the man at the grassroots does not believe in it or believes it doesn't work? If an undemocratic force appears tomorrow, maybe in uniform or something like that, and you want somebody to protect, say, what's the difference? You are here, you use your office, you use your money, to claim that you have won an election. So if this one comes and says it's also, ruling over us, what is the difference between you and the undemocratic force? So we have to be, realistic, to ourselves as political, parties and the politicians. I'm saying this because she mentioned dysfunctional, development. And that's the most dysfunctional development you can think of. If at that level, democracy is not allowed to take root. Number two, we also discovered that we ourselves, as politicians, we tend to take things for granted. Especially the national people we elect to go to the National Assembly, as if they're not aware of this thing, as if they don't know the implications of all these things, and they pretend that no, it's okay. Local government is very key. That's what I'm trying to say. It's important that democracy works at local government so that it can now, translate to the national levels. That otherwise we've just been penny wise and pounds foolish, thinking that we have gotten it right. No, if the foundation is so rotten, and you think you are there, believe me, we are not there. So I think if there's anything we should do to ourselves and help this democracy to grow, is to address those inadequacies, those gaps, those deliberately put policies or laws that do not support growth of democracy in our country.
And I don't think anyone can argue with that. So we're going to ask or talk about consequence management. Because oftentimes, beyond preaching and saying that, look, it's about attitudes, we need to change our attitudes. Some people will say, well, if attitudes don't change, what are the consequences? And I think that's where INEC comes in. I know that INEC is seeking to be unbundled so that another part of it will handle consequence management. But then, as it currently stands, what consequences have there been for bad behavior?
Thank you once again. The clamor for unbundling INEC has continued to grow louder. And while I am not speaking for the Commission, I want to say that the Commission is indeed overburdened, and there is need to unbundle INEC to perform various functions. But beyond that, there is this question of inclusivity. Madam Ene here just spoke about bringing in women. I don't think it's only women that have to be included in the political system. We also need to bridge the gap between tribal groups, religious groups, and such other diverse interests within the society. For us in INEC, we have continued to encourage PWDs to participate actively in politics, and we use them while we conduct elections. It is important that we build national structures that can propagate the ideals that will eliminate poverty. Poverty is a very critical issue in this country. Let us face reality. Every government has continued to say they will lift this number of people out of poverty. They will lift that number of people out of poverty. I agree it's not easy. For the outsider, he thinks somebody is not doing enough, but it is not an easy project. However, it is important for political parties to continue to self-regenerate by strengthening and promoting internal democracy, transparency, and accountability. Parties should be inclusive, allowing for broad-based membership and encouraging the participation of traditionally marginalized groups, especially women. If you ask Madam Mena, political parties should also uphold and implement comprehensive electoral reforms that foster a democratic political culture of respect of rule of law, rights and majority of minority, transparent competition and political participation. This is in response to what Engineer Yabagi has just spoken about. But I should make the clarification that INEC is a different entity from CX. Please, there are places where they don't even know that it is not INEC that conducts local government elections. INEC is different from CX. So there is need for transparency, competition, and of course, political participation. This includes conducting free and fair elections, enhancing the independence and effectiveness of electoral bodies, and promoting voter education and awareness. As I earlier stated, democracy is a long race. And I'm happy that this research has given us hope. With due respect to my Lord Bishop, it appears that the findings of this research gives up hope, no matter whether it's a glimmer of hope, that there is hope for us at the end of the tunnel. In this journey, we have found out that what were problems or what were solutions of yesterday have now become
problems of today.
May I illustrate? We, at INEC, we introduced beavers for the conduct of elections. There was a lot of opposition to the use of beavers, if I must say that openly here. But of course, it worked. And they are finding ways around it to discredit the use of beavers. Whether you want to accept or not, beavers has helped us to improve the conduct of elections in this country. Presently, we are interrogating the conduct of the 2023 elections. And I may not want to talk about certain things, but at the appropriate time, the Commission will make known to the public its findings and, of course, its recommendations. But to continue from where I started, INEC should be onboarded. I'm sure many people will agree with me on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Somehow, my question didn't get answered when you gave your speech. I just wanted to know what the state of consequence management is. Beyond preaching to political parties, they need to get up and do the right thing. Beyond saying, look, we need to deepen our democratic process. We need to conduct elections that are free, fair, and credible, and parties need to deepen their internal democracy. What consequence management can exist when these things do not happen?
Yes, of course. Where we have found people wanting, we have tried to prosecute them. And you are aware that we have gone into a sort of alliance with the Nigerian Bar Association. I wish the president of the Bar Association were here. We have about 192 cases that are in court of electoral offenders. There must be consequences for misbehavior. We are prosecuting these cases. INEC is prosecuting these cases, and the Nigerian Bar Association is helping us to prosecute these electoral offenders. That is to tell you that INEC believes that there must be consequences for bad behavior.
Okay. Well, thankfully, my panelists, you'll have a minute each to wrap up your thoughts on what you think of what needs to be done to develop and sustain a political culture of integrity and accountability. But as has been noted in the introductions this morning, we have also been joined by very eminent personalities within political parties. One of them is, I beg your pardon, a number of them are here, and first person I'm going to be I've been asked to also allow to speak and intervene on this matter is the current chairman of the All Progressives Congress, His Excellency, former governor of Kano State, Governor Ganduje. Sir, you've been given some time to be able to intervene in this particular issue, or how you think that we can develop a process that has got integrity and makes our political parties more accountable. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. First of all, I have to thank this center that organized this very important dialogue, especially considering what has happened in the 2023 general elections. There's no doubt that a political party in a developing country is being considered just for election. But we have to go far away from that. Of course, the traditional function of a political party is for the recruitment of elective and appointive officers for the government in power. If that party happens to win the election, and if that party has not won the election, then the party remains in opposition in order to checkmate the activities of the government in power. So the main issue here is that the activities of the political parties are just limited during election. Therefore, if we are to improve that, the issue of political party is the issue of institution building. If the institution is weak, then you don't expect the parties to be able to carry out the functions as are supposed to be. So there must be a framework where political party activities will continue throughout the year. And this is only possible when there's capacity building, when those who are in charge of the political parties are people who are qualified, people who have the capacity, so that they can initiate various activities for the political party throughout the year. The issue of internal democracy is a very important issue. It will save us from a number of litigations, election malpractices. So we have to strengthen political parties as strong institutions so that we develop internal democracy. Somebody has already said we need to change our behavior. There's no doubt after election, you hear people blaming INEC, you hear people blaming the judiciary, you hear people blaming the security agencies. But if you x-ray the circumstances, you will find out it is the behavior of the politician that is giving room for all what is happening. So I think we have a very long way to go. We must have institutional framework. There must be legislation, even on the form of political parties. Because a political parties, as they are now, is like a school without a curriculum. It's like a school without subject matter as such. Anybody can claim to be a politician. Anybody can claim to be an administrator of a political party. But it's not so. Another contending issue is that of local government election. There's a difference between INEC and state election commissions. Unfortunately, state government do not allow any political party to win election, but only the ruling party. I don't know how we can break this vicious cycle, because it's a constitutional issue. The creation of the State Electoral Commission is a constitutional issue. We need to change the constitution. But unfortunately, the state government are involved in changing the constitution. And the state governments are more in number than any other organs that contribute in the review of our constitution. So this is a big problem. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you so much for your contributions. We'll also be taking the contributions of a former governorship aspirant in Ogun State, Mr. Shegun Showumi. He's over here.
Good afternoon, everyone. In my opinion, I think that we can accept that a party that wins an election underneath our processes maybe has been successful and has to deal with forming government and dealing with everyday issues. I mean, because I represent the PDP and we've been in government before and we're in opposition now, I think that the space to deepen, if we're to improve political parties, is actually what opposition parties do with themselves when they are not in power. For democracy will always give opportunities for parties to win and lose and win and lose. I believe that we're not doing as much as we can do because it appears as if opposition parties don't really understand what the roles and responsibilities they have in ensuring that the democratic space not only criticizes the party that has won or the government in charge, but also helps to broaden the conversation around democracy within the country. That's the first point. The second point I would like to make about inclusion, especially for women, with profound respect, my party, the PDP, does quite a lot in making sure that they come to the ballot at almost minimal price, probably 10% of whatever others pay. and we have looked at the voting numbers. There's almost an equal proportion of men and women in the voting numbers. What we have been struggling with is to understand why it appears as if you put a man and a woman together to contest for the same post, why it appears that when you go back and do the voter analysis of how the people voted, the women don't seem to vote for the women. And unless we are going to write what is anti-democracy, which is to say that for a democratic election, we're going to exclusively dash certain positions to women, which would then mean that we have to look for positions we have to dash to youth, and then we have to look for positions we have to give to disabled people. We're not going to make progress. I feel that we need a lot more education for the women and for everybody, because the he for she and she for he is a global phenomenon. That may help. In terms of democracy at the subnational level, which is really where the bane of everything is at, I believe that it is sheer irresponsible for political parties at subnational levels, which is at the state level, to imagine that whatever it is that we say we are practicing there is democracy. It doesn't make sense that a political party that runs an INEC-led election at the state levels can have a coloration of different parties winning different locations. And 5 minutes after the guy has become a governor, you ask him to go and do a state election, and suddenly his party is the only one that can win all the locations in the state. I believe that we must note this. Democracy is already shrinking in sub-Saharan Africa. And we can deceive ourselves until it collapses in our country. But if we look at our neighbors and all of the nations that have dropped out of this democracy, something had made their people rejoice when democracy fails. So I want to thank the Kukah Centre for this very, very incisive and needful conversation. Hopefully, when we take the report of the needs assessment, political parties will be able to do what they need to do. As for INEC, you have made a lot of improvement, but the biggest challenge you have in INEC is that you seem to say something and do another. No one is going to be responsible for making your operational manuals for you. You made it all by yourself. You marketed it to us, and you gave us reason to believe in it. You have a responsibility to take responsible consequences and say, we are guilty of leading you all on in the wrong place. Other than that, the last election process, your processes worked. There are 15 stages to an election. 14 of them worked. But one of the ones which your predecessor put a lot of energy on, which is the IREF, didn't work. And for that alone, you have sent the whole country in a tailspin, where people are now saying they can't accept the result of an election because of just one procedure that you marketed very much. So I want to say to INEC, I don't believe in this, who is to appoint the person in INEC. I don't understand where we're coming up from this kind of concept from. If we ask the judge to appoint INEC chairman, for instance, is the INEC chairman not going to be taken before the judge when they have to do election petitions? So I don't get why we are so fixated in how the person is appointed. I think the duty of ensuring that we have good people appointed in INEC is that of the legislature who has to screen them. Whatever the case may be, it's the right of a president or anybody to nominate anybody. But it's the duty and the oversight function of the legislator to ensure that those that are not fit for purpose are not passed. I think we can pussyfoot over these issues and be begging issues and be pretending as if we don't know where the problem of our country and our democracy is. But the earlier we look at ourselves in the mirror and recognize that we can't keep misbehaving and looking for someone else to blame for the group misbehavior of all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. We'll also be taking the contributions of Barrister Sly Eze-Okinwa, who is the national chairman of the All Progressives Grand Alliance, APGA.
Thank you very much. For me, I just have maybe one or two issues. I've listened keenly to much of the contributions from various resource persons that we have here, especially the panelists. And I must say I'm quite impressed. Let me begin by saying that, just like some persons have mentioned it here, The problem with political parties in Nigeria, for me, is just nothing but a clear point of the dysfunctionality of the society. It's basic, it's simple. So, you know, when you say how political parties are structured in Nigeria, you know, how parties organize their primaries and everything, if you look beneath, the main issue is the issue of the value system. You have the issue of the ethnic affiliation, you have the issue of religious affiliations, you have, just like the IPAC chairman has mentioned, the issue of ignorance, the issue of poverty or weaponization of poverty. So if we do not find a way to solve some of these societal issues, we will continue to have this conversation. We can organize a retinue of seminars, retinue of conferences, which will lead us to nowhere, as far as I'm concerned. Secondly, I must commend His Lordship for taking up the initiative, together with other governmental partners that have really contributed immensely in having or deepening this conversation. And particularly, I listened attentively to Professor Dan Azumi. For me, he has done a tremendous work in trying as much as possible, because if you look at his presentation, you see in it all the issues affecting political parties in Nigeria. And he has equally profiled solutions. And I agree with him when we say we've made meaningful progress. Meaningful. Maybe many people don't share that opinion. I am one of those that have said that looking at the last election, because before now, we've had two issues with elections in Nigeria, especially coming from the standpoint of INEC. One is the issue about accreditation process. The other is the issue about result management process. Accreditation, I give INEC close to 95%. Because with the introduction of the beavers, we now have some measure of credibility with the accreditation process. Now, what is now the issue is the result management process. One, many people don't even understand the INEC result management process, just like the last speaker mentioned about INEC trying as much as possible to stick to their own guidelines or to their own manual. You know, it will really, really, really do a whole lot of good for us to say, if you have made commitments that you're going to do so and so, please try as much as possible to do that. Then thirdly, I listened to Madam Ene Obi, you know, talk about women participation, women inclusivity, and then it seems as if she is equally paying, just maybe not really paying attention to equally the inclusiveness for young people in politics, and then the dysfunctionality or certain things that probably, you know, serve as impediment why we can't have not just women or people with disability, but equally young people. At least I can say proudly that my political party has equally taken the bull by the horn. Never was it expected that a young person like me could have been made the national chairman of a major political party in Nigeria. But then we are having that conversation, and I believe we can take it a lot better. I will really just make a profile one solution. His Lordship, as much as possible, I think the political party leadership or leaders of various political parties in collaboration with IPAC and INEC can come together and have a critical review of the analysis and the recommendations that have been made by the team that have been put together by the Kukah Centre. If we holistically and, you know, religiously adopt and implement the recommendations they've made, I've listened to them, you know, read out a whole lot of issues, you know, looking at the constitutional, statutory, and institutional framework, the continuous review of strict compliance to the Electoral Act, political party management, innovative way of party funding. If you look and listen to him, he did an exhaustive analysis and study of the issues that are affecting political parties in Nigeria and the recommendations that if I believe that if they are religiously followed and implemented, I believe probably in the nearest future, we'll look back and say, yes, we've come a long way, but finally we've conquered. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eziokenwa. Thank you so much for your contributions. It's a big if. We'll see if it will be a situation of if or when. Well, we'll also be hearing from a woman. It will not be an all-men's affair. I will also be seeking the contributions of Hajia Sadatu Abdullahi, who is the National Woman Leader of the Social Democratic Party. Please, may we have the microphone to her? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I would like to start by thanking my sister, Mrs. Ene, for the work that you've been doing, trying to see that women have given a proper place in decision-making of Nigeria, not only political parties. And to the center, thank you very much for the work that you've done. But I want to draw the attention of the center and other organizations like yours. Likely, the IPAC chairman is also here. The problem is this. Look at this sitting here. How many women are here? How many women are representing their party? If not for SDP, which is gender sensitive, that have allowed 2 women to come here, there wouldn't have been any woman leader or anything like that in this gathering today. You should take into consideration that there are 4 statutory positions in political parties. The national chairman, the women leader, ours is national women speaker, I am the national women speaker, the youth leader, and the people living with disabilities. If you are sending letters to political parties, you just send letters just like this, you know, and the chairman may decide to just send anybody. He may not look through to say, okay, let me send a woman. So, and these are the great problems that we have with organizations such like this. They are talking about and preaching inclusiveness, but even women organizations, if they are going to write letters to political parties, they say to the national chairman, without taking into consideration of other party organs that are there. I think you have to look into it if you really want to do your work very well. Also, the INEC representative is here. I want to ask this question I've been asking. You have a gender desk in INEC. We have never seen any work that gender desks have done in that place. What are you doing in your monitoring system operation? I have never seen INEC coming out to sanction any political party that does not live up to its own constitution. We are talking about inclusiveness. We are talking about party finances. We are talking about autocratic leadership in political parties. And INEC are there. They have never, ever visited any political party to check their constitution, to ensure that they live up to what is enshrined into their constitution. A political party may send a very robust constitution, but they don't implement it. So what are INEC doing? And also the gender desk. I have never seen where they have organized meeting to ask women, what is your concern? Why are you not getting tickets of your party? Why are you not being able to get this? Even if a woman has won her primaries and has been sent to INEC, somebody will go through the back door and that name will be removed. What is the gender desk doing? Have they ever looked through party nominations and insisted that, no, your constitution says you have given social positions to the women, but I have not seen women in your own nomination. I have not seen that. You know, so these are these. If we are just talking on lip service, coming out to gatherings like this, just do some things, and then we don't live up to it, I don't think it will work. I don't think so. So it's better we do exactly what we practice. That's it. If it is there in the constitution, and you are the regulatory body, you monitor political parties, what is stopping you from checking the constitution? For example, a political party, not mine, may one day wake up and decide to change the entire structures of the party. Just write letters to INEC, and then INEC will just accept it. You know, I think you need to do something about this, especially your gender desk, because I've been asking this question, what is the role of gender desk in INEC? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam. Thank you so much for your contribution. So, a challenge to all parties concerned. I'm afraid that we'll have to wrap up now especially listening to the contributions that we have heard. I'm sure that you also have a response for her as to what exactly the gender desk in INEC is doing. But yeah, let's start from over here. Okay. Well, I've just been told that the Director of Publicity is here. Director of Publicity at INEC is here. And the National Commissioner wants you to respond to the issue raised by the woman leader of the SDP.
Thank you. Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen.
Did you pick her because she was a woman? Did you pick her because she was a woman? Okay, no comments. Please go ahead.
Yeah, my sister over there, when she was talking, I was just amazed. Because if you are in tune with what is happening in INEC, you will know that the gender desk is doing quite a lot. I think somebody raised the issue here. Before now, elections, there were some people like persons living with disabilities. They have to be aided to cast their vote. And now, such people can actually cast their vote unaided if they want, because of instruments that have been put in place to enable them cast their vote. And I also know that just before the last off-season governorship elections, I'm not a gender desk, I'm not in the gender department, but I know that department has been up and doing. They organized a lot of activities in the 3 states, Bayelsa, Imo, and Kogi, not 1, not 2, not 3. Lots of activities. And apart from that, even about 2 weeks ago, they were having several activities, even here in Abuja. So I know they are doing quite a lot. They are communicating. They are reaching out. Probably they have not reached out to the political parties. And I was just telling my colleague seated close to me here that when I get back, I'm going to discuss with the director in charge. I will take your issues to her so that she'll know that probably there's need to also call on the political parties, maybe the women leaders, to engage them and to find out, their challenges and so on. But I know that the gender desk is doing quite a lot in the commission. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's not just about doing a lot. The question is, what is the impact of what it is that they're doing? What exactly is the results of what it is that they're doing? And I think that's where the question is. But yes, we're going to start with you, sir, for your closing remarks. Mr. Olumekum.
Thank you once again. An issue that had not really been properly dissected is the matter of election litigation. It appears to me that we are a litigation-happy country. It will interest you to know that most of the issues that went to court, indeed, 74% of the cases that went to court have to do with the conduct of political parties, not the conduct of the elections. I think it's important to make this point very clear. There was a newspaper that said because of the failure of INEC, most people have gone to court and stuff like that. Yes, our people always go to court. Even in appointing traditional rulers, they go to court. Even church leaders these days, they go to court. But in the specific case of INEC, 74% of those cases that went to court have nothing to do with the election. They are pre-election matters that had to do with the activities of the political parties. It is in this light that we will call on our political parties to promote internal democracy, transparency, and accountability. Again, it might be necessary for me to talk a little bit about appointment of INEC officials, especially chairman and commissioners. Well, it is not understood properly. The executive nominates, and it is the legislature that would approve the appointment of INEC commissioners. it does not rest absolutely with the executive. So it is important that all arms of government be involved. They should screen whoever is presented for any particular office in INEC. It is important to draw the attention of our people to this. The chairman of APGA spoke about result management. Thank you. I've noted your observation. And yes, it's an issue that we will also address very soon. Finally, sir, let me thank the Reverend Father Kukah Foundation for this wonderful job. In the past couple of months, I'm not sure I have been as happy as today, because at least a research finding says that there is hope for democracy in this Nigeria. Thank you, lead researcher, for this. But I also want to plead that you look into one other issue that is of germane importance to Nigerians. That is the issue of poverty. My Lord, can you do a research into the levels of poverty in Nigeria? We plead that you do this and make your findings known. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much for your contributions, Mr. Sam Olumekun. We're going to take that of the chairman of IPAC now.
Well, thank you, Mope. When the national chairman of APC was making his comments, he mentioned the issue of strong institutions. In a democracy, if you don't have strong institutions, justice, and peace, it will be difficult for you to have anything that can stand the test of time. Again, that brings us to an issue that is blatantly essential to the growth of democracy in this country. I'm talking about the futility of the emerging political parties spending their resources, their time and everything, and winning an election, and just after you have won the election, care is not taken. 2 months, 3 months later, the man has left your party for another party. And in most cases, it is the party that rejected him. Ab initio, he will come to your party, he will run the elections, you give him the platform, do everything, and then at the drop of a pin, the man will just, leave your party for another party. So I don't know how on earth party democracy can grow in this country. If after all said and done, you spend your money, your energy, your everything, 2 months, 3 months later, the man says, I'm no longer your member. And the National Assembly has refused to do something about this, like I said, blatantly existential development in our polity. I'm talking about the reckless, decamping of politicians from one party to the other. If you ask me, believe me, that is the most challenging problem that we have as political parties in this country. And it can be cured, I'm sure. It can be stopped if the National Assembly members are not selfish, because the majority of them are the ones receiving these decampees. And if they so love democracy and want parties to grow, I think we have to tell ourselves the gospel truth that we must do something about reckless decamping from one party to the other. Even governors do it shamelessly. A governor that was given a platform and everything would just wake up one day and say, bye-bye to that party, I'm going to another party, for flimsy reasons. So we believe that aspect is very important and we need to do something about it. Again, when the chairman of APGA was speaking, he made a request to your lordship. I think that request is very apt, it's important. that after this exercise, maybe ourselves and you can meet and digest further, the takeaways from this research that you have done. And we thank you very much for the effort you have put in, and I believe posterity will not forget that you did what you have done for us. And I encourage you to go on, and you will always find us a willing partner to make this democracy to succeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yabagi Sani, Chairman of IPAC. Madam Eniobi.
Thank you very much. I think that statement from the engineer also shows where we are, the political crisis that we also find ourselves. I'd like to talk, on the women not voting for women, and the crisis that people have been stigmatizing women about. I remember the issue of Auntie Sarah Jibril, and everybody kept resonating that and saying Sarah was the only person who voted for herself. And I was talking in a conference, last week, and one woman got up and said, I voted for Sarah. So how come the vote was counted one? The issue of transparency and accountability is a major issue in our political process, and the counting of votes that we're talking about. And so Rwanda decided and made a deliberate effort by putting their own percentages in the constitution to make sure that women have status, so that women have seats that they contest for. It's a short strategy of bringing in, or correcting the imbalance and increasing the number of women. And many countries have done that. South Africa has done that. Kenya just did that. So many other countries have been able to do that. So we need to look at that. The quality of the individual is very, very important. When I look across the room, all of us here, in another 100 years, all of us are going to be skeleton. So we are writing our history today. Just know that you are not on this earth forever. And so you are writing your history. When we have, a huge unemployment right now and so many crimes going on, when they say one person is killed, 2 people, 3 people, 20 people are killed, as a woman, I remember the umbilical cord of a woman that is being caught. Because when you kill one person, it's a woman who carried that child for 9 months and became something because of maybe 1 or 2 circumstances. So put that in your own. When a woman is talking, we are talking about humanity. If you hit a woman who has 6 children, boys and girls among the children, you are talking of human rights. So human rights, women's rights are human rights. We are not begging, we are not asking. You are not doing them a favor. You are increasing the quality of your development. Now, the gender bills, now it's coming again. It's going to come up again, and we take it to the National Assembly. We will see what happens at the National Assembly. Women will not just sit like that. And so the struggle continues. And then when you're talking of beavers, I don't like to talk about the election that has passed, but when you bring in the beavers as a magic player, I agree that it was a magic player. It was a magic player. When we went for the obstacle, my convener is here, Dr. Wisey is here, heading about 91 non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations, working tirelessly because we are not government. We can only do the bit that we are doing to seek how. Anambra election, we saw beavers working. I remember that the current governor did not vote until about 4 p.m. that day, but we followed through and INEC was responding. So we saw improvement. When we moved to the next election, we moved to Ekiti and Oshu, all these were improvement, but we came to national election. And then the beavers did not account the way it accounted in the off-cycle election. So these are problems and the INEC that we worked with, because for 2 years before the election, many of us were not sleeping. We had a system that would have gotten the best transparent election in Nigeria. But the political class again, just like you're talking about, the political class again. So we need to challenge ourselves as Nigerians. What are you leaving behind? Are you a role model for anybody? So the individual, the inclusivity, of course, the young people, we supported the not too young to run. So many young people are emerging, but more can emerge. And then the mentorship. What we are saying is boys and girls need to be involved from the machinery, from the structure of the political parties. We need to work and abide by our pledge, the national pledge that we all take. If not, you are cheating yourself, because this is one of the best countries in the world. But your role, believe you can make a difference individually as you are seated here. But if you know you can make it, if you believe it, you can make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, madam. Thank you always for your kind intervention there. Professor.
Well, thank you very much. My last intervention will be first to congratulate the Kukah Centre and the researchers for updating our knowledge up to 2023. It complements the work we have been doing, including the volume we published under the auspices of NIPS in Kuru. But my last point will be on the question of consequences that Maokbe raised at some point. And that is to point out that perhaps the most important tool of accountability, of holding political parties responsible, answerable, and liable for what they do is election. And that is why elections are so critical. And if elections are therefore organized in such a way that they do not inspire confidence or that they are flawed, then you deny the public that powerful tool for holding political parties accountable. And this is where I would like to speak to the ruling party and government about their moral responsibility to ensure that elections are properly conducted, to provide INEC the necessary space, both in terms of the character of appointees they put there and giving them enough space to do their work, as well as allowing a viable opposition. That is the only way, and this is a moral responsibility that I think every ruling party and government carries, because if that collapses, then you run the risk of people having to organize outside the statutory framework. And as the saying in my place goes, when the ear is spoken to and it doesn't listen, when the head is cut off, the ear will follow. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those wise words there. And on this note, I mean, I would not like to dilute any of the things that our able panelists have said, but we must always remember that political parties, that has been emphasized, are the linkage which is critical to the health of our democracy. And as Bishop did say in the beginning of this conversation, politics is not meant to be a blood sport. He also emphasized that politics is not meant to be a casino. So I think that if we have some of these things at the back of our minds and we imbibe the values as espoused in our anthem and in the pledge that we recite many times, perhaps this conversation will be something that we'll be meeting to discuss how much progress we have made in future. But on this note, I have to thank my panelists. Thank you so much, Mr. Sam Olumekun, Mr. Sani Yusuf Yabagi, Chairman of IPAC, Professor Okechukwu Ibianu, and Ms. Ene Obi. Thank you so much for your very beautiful contributions this afternoon. And thank you all for listening.
Thank you so much, Maope. Please, could you just stand for a photograph right there? Thank you. Yes, please, photograph. You can move forward a little. No, just the panelists for now. And while that is going on, I will invite the panelists to just immediately go down to where the report's actually laid, and we'll invite others to join them as well. Of course, His Lordship will be with them here. Every other person on the front row will also be here. The chairman, one representative of the political parties will also join in, just one representative of every political party. The representative of the Senate President, and of course the Speaker of the House. Please, His Excellency, do join us here. All the panelists, please. They'll be led by the IPAC Chairman. Ms. Ene-Obi, please join them. Thank you. We'll also have our lead presenter, lead researcher, Professor Dong Azumi. also here? All right. So Mr. Engineer Yabagisani will just take charge from here with this unveiling alongside His Lordship Bishop Kukah, the representative of the Senate President and the Speaker of the House. Can we have a microphone here, please? Microphone.
On behalf of all the political parties, and in particular the party leaders who are here present, we want to commend the effort of the Kukah Centre and also commit to working assiduously to ensure that most of the things they have discovered in their research have been put to correct the errors that we have discovered in our democratic journey. So I thank you very much for this opportunity, and we, the political parties, are happy that we have somebody like you doing this. Thank you and well done. Yeah.
All right, so everyone gets a copy, and we'll all hold it up for pictures.
Yeah, we are also rounding up to leave, but the time has been worth it. We've shared in the discussions and the contributions from the National Assembly. The chairman of the National Assembly, Senator Dr. Godswill Obot Akpabio, CON, is happy to have participated in this dialogue. And I assure you that this needs assessment of political parties in Nigeria, and the contributions made here will be plowed in making laws that will support and strengthen our march towards democracy. I thank you. I'll take copies of the book back to the National Assembly and to him, and you give some copies to the representative of the Speaker, for both of us are from the National Assembly. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you so much. Distinguished. So others in the room, I'm sure you will have copies as well. Can we have some people just distribute to other members of the audience? It will be great to have everyone have a copy of this needs assessment. Thank you so much. Please, a round of applause for everyone. Thank you. And while they're making their way back to their seats, may I respectfully invite Father Atta Barkindo, the Executive Director of the Kukah Centre, to please give us a vote of thanks. Thank you. Okay, so we'll just need to settle down so we can completely come to the end of this event. Please, let's settle down. Thank you so much.
Just wait for me. Don't go anywhere. Stand next to me. They won't go. Your Excellencies,
Ladies and gentlemen, just to be very brief, we want to thank you all for your patience, for the time you have spent with us. On behalf of the Kukah team, I want to particularly thank the members of all the political parties. Please, we are rounding up, so just 30 seconds. I will thank everyone, and we are done. MC. My Lord. So I want to thank everyone on behalf of the Kukah team for the time you have given to us, for your patience. And I want to thank particularly the members of the political parties, those that were really very accessible during this research. And I want to also thank the European Union, who have provided the support to the Kukah Centre. I want to thank the development partners. And finally, I want to thank the researchers, Professor Jake, for the beautiful work you have done, Emeka, Manji, Zigwe, and Father Stephen for all your contributions. And finally, I would like to thank Bishop Kukah for the support he has given us, and also Mr. Ezrom for your leadership and for your mentorship. And I want to thank all the members of the Kukah Centre team for the wonderful work that you have done. Finally, our panelists, all the professors, including our uncle for today, I really want to thank you. Maukwe, I want to thank you for the work you have done for us. May God bless you all, and please do have a wonderful day. I think we have some refreshment. Come and announce, please.
Please, let's give Father Barkindo a round of applause. Thank you. And the entire team that organized this as well. Thank you all so much. So we'll have the national anthem played as we conclude. We'll have the national anthem. Are we ready with it? So we'll have the national anthem and then conclude. Right after the national anthem, we have lunch. Lunch is served in the restaurant, right? So we'll just go through the door and we'll be directed to where lunch is served. But it has been a pleasure being here and quite a lot of learning points, and we hope that those learning points will be taken home from now on. National anthem, are we ready? Thank you for settling down as we have the national anthem. Ready? We can sing. All right, so let's sing. Arise, O compatriots, Nigeria's call obey, to serve our fatherland with love and strength and faith. The labor of our heroes past shall never be in vain. To serve with heart and might, one nation bound in freedom, peace and unity. Thank you so much for being a fantastic audience. My name is Inya Ode. Enjoy the rest of your day, and God bless. I want to see. Thank you so much, Josiah. Thank you, Yemisi, for signing for us today. Thank you so much. Lunch again in the restaurant. You'll be led there. Ezram is by the door, and I'm sure he'll point the way to all of us for lunch. So lunch is served in the restaurant inside the hotel. Thank you.